off the bat, Curtis Work will not play this week. He'll be. We do expect Curtis to return during the regular season with a thumb injury. That's all I'll say about the injury. We have 100% confidence, and the team has 100% confidence. I have confidence. The staff has confidence in Taven Jackson. I thought he played really well in the second half. And we got a tough challenge this week against a good football team, Washington. A lot of playmakers on offense, good defense. They like the pressure, not giving up a lot of points. A lot of respect for Coach Fish, very well coached team. Really was very impressed with his team last season, Arizona, where he turned that program around the way they finished. I think they won their last 8 games, maybe 9, playing about as well as anybody in the country last season. And they're a good football team. So we've got to have a great week. Questions?
Yeah, with Curtis, he dealt with an in-season injury and missed the stretch run of Ohio's 2022 season. Talk to him at all, and what's your message? Tell him to be patient. You know, I know you're probably not worried about his psyche, but just have you talked to him at all, and kind of what's your message to him kind of going forward?
Yeah, no, I'm not. He's a veteran guy, older guy. He's married, smart, and he's got a great attitude about it.
You talked about how it can be harder sometimes for a backup week to week. They don't get as many reps in practice. Things aren't maybe necessarily tailored to them the way they are the starter. What's different for Taven when he's able to go through a whole week knowing every practice, every film session, every install, everything is geared around him as the starting quarterback?
Yeah, exactly. And I thought he came in and did a nice job in the second half. And now he'll get more repetitions, which will help him prepare for the game on Saturday. And you know, he's a guy that's extremely capable, and I'm sure he'll rise to the occasion.
Curt, spoke with your old boss, Dave Blank, from Elon a few days ago about your time there. I asked you, I think at Big Ten Media Days, how analogous that situation was to Indiana's situation going into the season, and you said that it was pretty close. Now that you've had success here, similar to the way that you did at Elon, how similar does it remain, and how much do you kind of fall back on that experience to make this one successful?
Well, I think I drew parallels to that early on when I was hired. Haven't gone through that one time before. And one of the differences is we won a lot of close games there. A lot of those, we had 8 wins in a row, and they almost all went down to the last play of the game. Whereas here, you know, we've been pretty dominant in our performances, you know, haven't trailed. So, but they were similar situations, yes.
Curt, I'm kind of curious with Fox being here and now ESPN being here. Do you have a sense yet of the recruiting impact that's having on a national scale?
Well, I think it's great exposure for the football program and the university. And now we got to do our part. And on Saturday, and you know, you guys all know the best way to do that is to have a great day today, right? Great meeting, great walkthrough, and stack good days, which is what we have to do.
Curt, looked like you moved some pieces around in the secondary on Saturday, get Terry Jones seeing some more playing time. I guess, what do you like about him that got him on the field more? What maybe sparked that change?
Yeah, he's done a nice job on special teams, and he got an opportunity on Saturday. He's an aggressive player. He's played a lot of football. He had over 100 tackles at ODU last season, so which put Farrell at strong safety, and we liked the way that played out on Saturday. I thought we played really well on defense Saturday. Created 5 turnovers. We had 28 points off of turnovers Saturday, which you don't see that very often. And the offense, I thought, did a great job. You know, red area 7-on-7 or 7 for 7 touchdowns, and you know, we outrushed them pretty significantly. But Terry, I thought, you know, Terry did a nice job.
Curt, with Curtis out at least for a game, maybe 2, we don't know, but how important was it that Taven got to play an entire half Saturday against that Nebraska defense?
Well, you know, and played well, right? And he's played this year. So, you know, we always talk about the next man up. You know, everybody's here for a reason, right? Because, you know, in this sport, you're going to have injuries at every single position. And, you know, it's a lot different when you're the starter, right? And I'm sure he was excited about it. The team rallied around him at halftime. And, you know, we outscored him 28-0 in the second half.
Zach in front of Joe.
Coach, I guess with Big Noon kickoff coming, College Game Day coming this weekend, does that sort of validate what you guys are doing as far as the process is concerned to try and turn this program around?
Yeah, I mean, they're here for a reason because, you know, we're winning games, creating a lot of excitement. That adds to the excitement. And, you know, once again, we got to do our part.
Joe on the right, then Ken.
Coach, two very talented receivers on the outside for Washington. What are your expectations for your secondary and really defense as a whole against Washington?
Yeah, they got a really big offensive line, big tight ends, big running back, experienced quarterback, another quarterback that's got really good athleticism, can throw the ball also. I like their wideouts a lot. They're going to be a challenge. They got a really good scheme. So, you know, we're going to have to fly around, swarm the ball, win up front, put pressure on the quarterback, stop the run, cover, create some turnovers offensively, you know, win the line of scrimmage, be balanced, run the ball, you know, separate versus man. There's a lot of man-to-man coverage from Washington, handle the blitzes, and be good in critical situations. The keys of the game really never change.
Ken, top row, middle of the game.
From a mentorship standpoint, how important is it that for just Taven and the rest of the quarterbacks to have a guy who's been successful at the college level, played a lot of football over the years in Curtis, that they could lean on and learn from, not just this year, but setting the foundation for going forward?
Yeah, I think it's good. You know, I saw them supporting one another during the game, and you know, the way Curtis prepares and practices, you know, he's a good role model for the younger quarterbacks, and you know, everybody needs a role model, right? So, you know, he'll be on the sidelines Saturday, and you know, he'll be a plus.
Daniel, front, middle, then Jack.
Yeah, you mentioned, last winter with Jackson, just that you were excited to see how far you all as a staff could help him, just having that extra structure around him that he kind of lacked last year. Just when you kind of reflect on the last however many months, where have you maybe seen him improve the most?
Well, I think you see it during the games when he gets his opportunity, and how he's responded and how he responded on Saturday. And, he's a year older. And it's a different offense. It's a different system. Tino does a great job of developing the quarterbacks. And, he's got excellent potential. And he's gotten better. And now he's got an opportunity. And he's got to take it and run with it.
Jack, row 2 left, and Zach.
Yeah, Curt, whether it's at Indiana or James Madison, what are a few of the traits with Tino that you think have led to your success with quarterbacks?
Well, he's a really good quarterback coach, has a great relationship with those guys, student of the game. He communicates really well. I think, offensively we do a nice job in terms of our system and giving the quarterback answers. Every play's got an answer. And we build the offense around the quarterback. I mean, the last 4 have been the player of the year in the league, and the previous 2 were one-year transfers that only had moderate success at the places they'd been in the past. And, one was a dual and one was a pocket guy and 2 were in between. So I just think, we do a nice job developing quarterbacks. It's a group effort, a team effort. But since Tino's been here, I think he's taken those guys to another level, and this will be his 3rd or 4th year with me, yeah.
Zach and Liz.
I think we asked you about it after the game, but as you've been able to process some film, just what worked so well on the ground. That defense hadn't given up a rushing touchdown all year. I think you're one of only 2 teams to rush for 200-plus as a team against Tony White's defenses since he got to Nebraska. What was opening up for you guys in the ground game Saturday?
Well, when you're balanced, right, and we throw RPOs too, so we're not running in the stacked boxes, and we throw the ball efficiently too, so you can't load up against us. But we blocked them up front. really well, and our backs made people miss, and the downfield blocking was good. So it was an explosive day, no doubt about it. And we capitalized on our opportunities, many of which were created by our defense.
On the flip side of that, with the pass protection, was that the best the line has played this season? And just what's kind of been the key to sort of getting that group? I mean, showed a lot of chemistry and just played well all season long, all 7 games.
Well, I really haven't measured it against another performance, but those 5 guys have been in there almost every single play all season long, and they're tough, hard-nosed, blue-collar type guys. And Coach Bostad has done a great job of developing them. They're on the same page. They function really well together. And, they're a tough physical group. And I'm not surprised by what they did on Saturday, not at all.
Curt, have you and Lee Corso ever crossed paths at any points in your career, either by him being a former IU coach or just, in terms of being around college football a lot?
Well, game day came to JMU last season, so my wife and I made sure we spent about 10 minutes with Coach Corso beforehand, and had a great conversation with him. And then I called him on his birthday a month or 2 ago. He called back. We had a nice conversation. So been aware of him, obviously, for a long time. I can think all the way back to when we were at West Virginia, and there were only 9 bowls back then, right? And the final bowl spot, the Peach Bowl, I think it was 72, came down to West Virginia and a 9-1 Louisville team coached by Lee Corso, right? And West Virginia whacked Syracuse pretty good and got the bid. So that was probably the first time I was aware of who he was, yeah.
All right, thanks, Curt.
Thank you.
Trying to get a little weather change here. Everybody's kind of enjoying this so far. Obviously, it's a quick turn of the page, right? I mean, yeah, it was a great weekend. Not a whole lot of time to enjoy it. I think the most time that is a little travel back. But it's the same thing I've said probably over and over the last few weeks. We're continuing to get better, and I think each and every week, the last few in particular, we've seen some steps that I think we've done a really good job at taking. It was a battle. I don't know that it was as clean as we would have liked it to be honest with you, but that complimentary ball that really had to take place, it did. And, I think the thing that maybe I said it afterwards, when the opportunities arise, I think that's where we've been, the last few in particular, have been really good at taking advantage of some of the opportunities. And this past week, I think that's really evident. Obviously there's a lot of really good things, but I mean opportunistic in the situations where, whatever the guy does, we get a fumble on the 2-yard line, or 3-yard line, 4-yard line with 45 seconds going to half, and we put the thing back in. There's just some opportunities, block field goals, put hands on punts, that we've taken advantage of those opportunities, and I think that's a big area where we've been able to grow. Games are always going to have adversity in them. There's going to be shots on both sides. There's going to be plays made on both sides. And I think in the first few weeks we had a tough time handling some of those things. And in that way, sometimes you don't take advantage of some of the opportunities that are out there. And the last few in particular, we've done a really good job of finding ways to take advantage of the opportunities when they arise. And the only way you can do that is by doing your job and doing it really well in execution. And that's what we keep hammering upon to our players is you never know when those opportunities are going to come, but you got to be ready for them. And I thought, special teams wise, there was a lot of really good things, and then there were some things we got to do a lot better. And we're going to pride ourselves on that ability the special teams wise to connect both the offense and defense and really be the link in that complementary ball. And we put a hand on obviously a punt, we put a hand on a field goal, but we also had a field goal blocked ourselves. We had punt return yards that are not something that we're used to. But there's a lot of those areas where there's some really big plays out there, and there's some things that change a little bit more the dynamics of games when you can tackle people inside the 20-yard line if they try to return the thing, and then you have a chance to take one back out to the 40 or 50-yard line. Those are areas where the field position battle really kind of turned, and we needed that this past weekend. And I think if there's anything that we did, I think that's the one area that linked everything together.
Luke, when some of your players have been asked about the improvement of the defense, they point to the defensive line and what they're seeing there. And I'm curious, what what strides have you seen? Where do you think, what part of the game do you think that unit is better that's helping things?
I think the ability for those guys to play multiple guys. I think that we, have always had that philosophy. Always, I say the last 2 years have had that philosophy that you got to be able to play multiple guys. But sometimes as you get into a season, when you really start to go back on it, you're really not. If there's 65 snaps and some guys are playing 45 and some are playing 20, that's not really what you're talking about. And so I think our ability, Coach EJ's ability, Coach Witt's ability, or Coach Mitch's ability to truly have a balance of those guys, it's given them an opportunity to continue to grow. And you kind of do ride some of those guys that are having a hot hand. But I would say more than anything, they've answered the challenge. And I think the last few weeks, we've kind of put a challenge upon those guys up front to be able to set a standard and set a tone and do the things we ask them to do each and every week, because sometimes it changes. Everybody wants to talk about sacks and everybody wants to talk about, the minus yardage plays. But the difference in ball games are when you can establish a line of scrimmage, when you can create walls, and when you can pressure quarterbacks by not running around things sometimes and really kind of execute the game plan. And if there's one thing those guys have done in particularly really well the last 2 weeks, is be challenged to do something maybe a little bit different and then execute it on Saturday.
Luke, Penn State's a team that's pretty well built from defensively, at least from front to back. Like, what is the challenge for your offensive line this week against Penn State's defensive front?
Well, it's going to be a little bit different than it was the past week, right? I mean, last week you knew where the guys were going to be. They were going to be big. They were going to be physical. They were going to be strong. They were going to be square. This week it's a little bit different in the sense that you don't know exactly where they're going to be. They're going to move all around. They've got really, really good athletes. I think obviously that's where the strength of their team is, and their ability to create some havoc and make some of those big plays up front, athletically, but also physically and speed-wise, is the challenge. And it's not. It's clean sometimes. Like, you can prepare during the week, like, okay, this is what you're going to see. I think when you really kind of start to break those guys down, it's different to prepare for, because they're going to be in a lot of different places. They're going to do a lot of different things, and they rely upon their ability to create havoc, their athleticism to make some plays up front. And we got to play really sound, and we're going to have to be able to match and be able to adjust by what it is that they're doing. Obviously as you get into the game.
Just regarding that offensive line, what's the difference you've seen in them these last three during this winning streak? Where's the main area where they've kind of progressed?
I can't sit here and say that. Like, I know it's easier for guys to say, well, there's got to be a reason why you're winning, and there's got to be a reason why you're running the football better. And I can honestly say I just think the guys are continuing to play better together. I think that each and every week they're well prepared, but it comes down to the execution of things on Saturday. And as things happen better, obviously confidence builds, and I think you play faster. But if there's one thing this past week, as you really look at it, I think there's only 2 runs. If you take Tywee's runs, 126 yards, there's only 2 runs where I would say there's not somebody sitting there of some sorts, an unblocked hat. It's not some version of a train wreck somewhere. I think there was a 3rd down run. It was 3rd and 4, and I think he went for 24, 25 yards, got tripped up. And there's one run late where I think he cuts off the backside edge, and maybe he gets tackled by the legs. Otherwise, every other run was some type of physical, somebody coming down from the second level, somebody coming over from the other, in some ways an unblocked hat. So I know you asked about the offensive line, but I think that's a part of it, right, is when you can't every single time block every guy, you got to have confidence that you can still run the football. And that's where I think we've grown. I think that's where we've kind of allowed the offensive line to play a little bit more aggressive and grow as well. And then count on, that guy that's carrying the football to say sometimes, we might not be able to block that guy that's coming down from 7-8 yards, and we're going to take our chances. And when you do that, I think it gives guys opportunities that they don't have to be perfect. And I think twofold, the offensive line has done a better job. They're working together. But I also think that as a whole, we've done a better job to say, look, yes, they might do this, they might spin, but let's block the things that we see. And if there's somebody it's an unblocked hat, maybe he's coming across, maybe he's coming from depth, and we're just going to give Tywee or Darian Dupree or Dylan Jones or Cade Jack, we're going to give them an opportunity to get started downhill and then see what they can do. And I think all of us have gained a little bit more confidence and ability to do that.
Luke, looking at the travel rosters for the 3 road games, there's been double-digit first-year freshmen that have been on those travel rosters. Is that number larger or unimpressive? Like, kind of, is it bigger than when you had even at Cincinnati?
I don't study the travel roster maybe like you guys. Actually, it's funny because pregame meals we eat by, class. So seniors, juniors. And it gets a little mixed up because everybody that's in their second year wants to eat a little bit earlier. So when you call sophomores, they all get up to eat. But you do start to look at, when you say freshmen, how many guys truly get up and usually it's only the first-year guys. So I don't read the roster. I don't, study the roster. But pregame meal, it's always nice to kind of start to look to see how many true freshmen you have traveling and how many of those guys are, having an opportunity to make an impact.
What actually goes into that travel roster in terms of with those freshmen?
There's no handouts. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
You have to have a role. You have to be in a position, in a place where, hey, this is something that we're going to do. I would rather look. There's a 76 limit on the roster, and if we took 72, I'd be fine. If that's what deserved to go, if we could, I was in a different league and we didn't have a travel limit. That didn't mean we took everybody, but anybody that was deserved and earned an opportunity and could play in the game, and we would take. Sometimes when they put limits on it, it might hold you back, but it doesn't change. I mean, every one of those guys, I think if you looked at it, maybe who was one that was on last week that hadn't been Big Mel, and he may be a Chicago kid, but it wasn't like we were just going to take him because he's from Chicago. Yeah, we had an issue with the tight end position but we wouldn't have taken either one of those two guys if we didn't feel like they had some really good weeks put back to back to back, that we'd have confidence to be able to put them in a football game.
Coach, earlier in the season, you guys got the 2 top 15 opponents. Obviously didn't go the way you want. When it comes to a game like this, especially it being at home, do you think the guys are maybe hungrier to try and unseat one of those top teams and prove yourself at a higher rate?
No, I don't. I hope our guys don't look at what somebody is ranked and things like that. Obviously, I know that there's things that people talk to them about, but it's just another great opportunity for us. We knew in this league this is what we signed up for, and week in and week out, it's going to continue to be those situations. And if we start to look at it differently, look, it's a night game. It's later in the day. We know we're going to create an environment that's going to be really exciting and fun. And I think that's what we need to look at. Not, hey, what are these guys ranked? What do people think? And things like that. Try to put all those things behind us and just recognize, look, this is a big game because we've had an opportunity to make it a big game. And the way that our guys have played the last few weeks make it a bigger game. Nothing else matters. We talked about it last week of payback and redemption and the way we had played last year. And you talk about those things, but like I say, once that ball's kicked off, none of that matters. And so people will talk about it this week in some light, but once that ball's kicked off, none of that matters. And we got to continue to focus on the things that matter.
Luke, how much do you buy into home field advantage? And as you build this thing, how important is it to you to kind of establish this place as a tough place to play?
Home field advantage is what you make of it. And I think that this place has been a home field advantage, obviously over time. But you got to make it a home field advantage. I think that's one of those things that Coach Alvarez, when he came a little bit and visited the last time early in the season, he kept talking about the environment and making this place a home field advantage. But you have to. You have to make it the home field advantage. You have to create some of those things. You have to generate the energy. And that's what our guys got to understand, right? It doesn't just happen. Because they make the game at 6:30, because they make, whatever the rankings and matchup is, that doesn't make it, doesn't give us an opportunity to have a home field advantage unless we make it a home field advantage. So I think we put a lot of that upon ourselves to say, hey, this is something that falls on our shoulders too. If we don't go out there and start fast and do the things we've done the last few weeks, then it doesn't become a home field advantage. So we got to pride ourselves in making it and creating it as well. Otherwise, you just assume that the students got to get there earlier, right? Hey, students got to get there. Give us a reason to get there a hell of a lot earlier, and that's what we got to do.
Luke, with Sebastian Cheeks, obviously helped on that safety this past weekend, but just with him and starting off as an inside linebacker, going to outside linebacker. Just what were discussions like with him during that time with the transition? Just how have you seen him progress since
I don't
then?
know that there was a ton of discussion. We always, when you try to move guys around, you always do want to get opinion, but most of these kids want to play, and if they want to play, sometimes you got to get them in the place that gives them the best opportunity. So obviously, when we talked about it, we made a transition with him, I think 2 weeks into camp or something. I think maybe after Thomas Heiberger got hurt. And it didn't take long for us to realize and believe that this is his best position. I didn't say that maybe he always felt like that or feels like that, but I've definitely seen him over the last 4 or 5 weeks kind of grow and, and understand the position more and become, a more of an asset for us. And I think he's going to continue to do that. Obviously, he's not played as many reps maybe as he might hope at times, but I think that's the thing we keep talking about the guys up front. We have the ability to kind of roll a lot of guys, and right now there's 5 guys at least playing up there on those outside linebacker spots, and maybe even 6 with Thomas Heiberger get back into the mix. And all of them have a little bit of a different, strength and ability, and we're just trying to find ways to continue to use those guys in the best ways possible. But he's a guy that definitely he showed up in some of these games. He's produced some, whether it's sacks or havoc plays or tackles for loss. He is a guy that's going to be a difference. I didn't say a difference maker, but he could be a difference maker because he is different than the rest of those guys on the edge, and he's only scratching the surface.
Look, we saw Tretch and Will play the most snaps together through the season on Saturday. I know obviously there's some injuries at the wide receiver spot that probably create some of those opportunities, but what are some of the challenges or maybe difficulties of getting both those guys out there at the same time that you found in the first?
Well, to me, that's why it's important that, in your first year or 2 years in a system, that you call it a system. And guys learn it as a system so that there's interchangeable parts. We know that both of those guys might fit a little bit better in slots, but the ability to get your best players on the field, it has to be taught systematically. And I think that's where you're seeing the growth of the things that we've done from year 1 to year 2 is guys understand the system better. And when they understand the system better, they can be plugged into different spots. And when you can be plugged into different spots, just like offense and defense, you can get your best 11 guys on the field. And that's a process that it takes time sometimes, and it takes want to by the guys as well, to challenge themselves to do that. And so we've had a better opportunity, better chance to do that. And then obviously injuries have put us in some of those situations to have to do it a little bit more. But that's where I think we got to continue to grow, figuring out how do we get the best 11 guys out there. And sometimes the best 11 is 4 wides, sometimes it's 2 wides. But either way, it's a lot of times with both those 2 guys on the field.
Luke, I believe Mabry got in there at the end of the game. I just wanted to ask, what's the value maybe in getting him those few snaps at the end of the game? And do you ever kind of think about the red shirt aspect of it as well?
Yeah, I don't know what the value in that situation probably as we look back at him. Here's a guy that we know has to be ready, and every opportunity to step on a field on a Saturday, regardless of what the situation, he's got to be ready, and that's where. One of those situations that you don't think it's a big deal until it's a big deal, and what I mean is the guy's still 1 play away, not from just going in there and finishing a game, but from going in there and having to win a game, going in there and have to control a game, going in there and have to make adjustmts and adapt within a game. So every opportunity to get him on the field, I think, is a great opportunity for us.
Walker had over 20 carries each of the last 2 weeks. I think he only approached that level like twice at his former school. What did y'all see in him that made y'all realize he was ready for that workload and could thrive the way he has?
Well, I don't, like you said, since you hadn't seen him carry the ball over 20 times, but all you got to do is meet him and spend a little bit of time with him, and you would assume that if given the opportunity to carry the ball over 20 times, you don't think it would be something out of his character or nature, and it's been great to see him be able to do that because I've been around some pretty dynamic backs, and as you get into the season, you kind of recognize and assess where they're best. And we had a back that was a pretty good draft pick that, as we got into the season, we didn't know he was a transfer guy as well, and we didn't recognize that he probably was best with no more than 18 to 20 carries. And as we got into the season, I think we're starting to recognize that Tyree in particular is a guy that's much better with more than 18 to 20 carries. And you might have assumed that as he walked in the door, just being an older guy, being mature, being physical, being strong. But a lot has to do mentally with a lot of the way you go about the game. And so it's been impressive to see him as he's continued to grow and show us how he can handle things and how he gets better with the more carries that he has.
I know at this time of week it's dicey asking about how guys are in injuries and stuff, but as far as Bryson goes, is there any level of optimism?
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, we were hoping that this would be the week he would be able to make it back. He's a tough guy. I mean, like he would have been out there last week had you let him probably, and I don't know what he could have done or even protect himself. But he's a guy that's going to give it everything he's got, and it'll be more of a game time situation. I don't know how much he'll be able to do during the week. Right, this is only Monday, but I still don't know how much we would think he's going to be able to do on a Tuesday and a Wednesday. And but again, I don't ever count him out. He you count him out, he'll surprise you. So we'll have a better idea later in the week, but I would say he's limited right now, and then it's going to come down to how well can he play, how well can he protect himself, and what are the advantages if he is in there.
From the outside looking in, it seems like it was a very well-rounded, complete game in all three phases. Would you grade Saturday's game as the most complete, well-rounded game of the year?
No, I wouldn't. I think that there was a lot of opportunities we left out there. I think the first half is still one of those situations. And again, we talk about it. Sometimes you got to have a plan going the game, and we knew it was going to be a little bit more of a physical game. We knew that and believed that it was going to have to be one of those things where we're going to have to wear people down, in particular last week, wear them down up front, even in the back end, because they were going to make it very difficult to run the football. They were going to make it very difficult to create bigger plays. So I say complete. I'd like to have seen, be able to do some of that earlier in the first half. But I do think it was more of the complete game of adding the special teams, having some negative things happen to us, still be able to handle those things, and then, the second half of the game really kind of taking over. But I think as a whole, the first half of things, I'd like to see us be able to control the line of scrimmage. I think I'd like to see us create some bigger plays early on. But that's also getting a little bit selfish. That's also getting a little bit greedy. But that's hey, as you start to play better, those are the things that I think continue to drive you.
So, Luke, with seeing the Wisconsin football equipment Twitter account talk about how they unloaded, after they got back from Evanston, I think it was like an hour and a half total from unloading the truck and putting stuff in the laundry. But I guess overall with like what these equipment managers do and just prepping for games and getting things ready in the locker room, just especially your time here, what have you seen from them and just what they do for this program?
This is a huge business that a lot of people don't see a lot of the things that go on. And Jeremy and that crew, like I said, since the day I walked in the door, have been incredibly impressed. The last few years, it's been one of those, kind of areas where you said, like, okay, this area isn't something that grows, and it's kind of becoming unique. And with what, like I said, when you look at every area in college football, every area within your program, whether it's from the technology sides of things, the video sides of things, and then people forget about this equipment side of things that just have to be there every single day, day in and day out, and it's not an area that maybe gets as much growth and opportunity as a lot of the other areas. And but I don't know that there's a place that can move forward without it, right? I mean, like the health and wellness of your guys, that's not just in the training room, that's just being able to be taken care of with everything they do. So those guys do a phenomenal job. Saturdays are not easy for them either. 11 o'clock kick for us means probably about a 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. start for them as well. Not to mention that we're loading up and headed back home and try to relax a little bit, and those guys are still at work. So it's a thankless job, but those guys do a great job.
So appreciate you guys coming out and covering Penn State football. Like always, I'm going to kind of just get right away into Wisconsin. Obviously, a lot of history, with this program. Ton of respect for their head coach. Obviously, he's a Big Ten guy. For most of his career, player and as a coach. has done a nice job wherever he has been. I think really the last 3 weeks they've played their best football. They're really coming on right now, just watching them on tape, how clean they're playing, how hard they're playing. It's impressive to watch. When you talk about their offensive coordinator, Phil Longo, is a local guy. Started his career I don't know if you guys know this, started his career at East Stroudsburg. Just want to make reference to that. But Phil's done a really good job. Obviously, did a great job when he was at North Carolina and has been at Wisconsin now the last couple of years. Really comes from a spread RPO tempo background, but he's evolved. And I think part of that evolution is being at Wisconsin and being with Luke. I think there's an obvious commitment to running the football, just running the football, maybe in a different way than we're used to seeing Wisconsin run the ball, but still very, very effective. We've been impressed with their quarterback, Braden Locke, who's a Mississippi State transfer. We've been impressed with their running back number 3, Tawee Walker, who's an Oklahoma transfer, and then their wide receiver number 8, Vinny Anthony. Those guys have been impressive to watch, and again, they're doing some really good things. Defensively, Mike Tressel is the defensive coordinator. Was at Michigan State for a long time. That's kind of his background. I think if you look at how Michigan State played all those years and how Wisconsin is playing now, I think there's some similarities. Obviously, they've evolved and tweaked some things as well, but they're playing really good football right now on the defensive side of the ball, led by Coach Tressel. Guys that jump out to us is number 24, Hunter Wohler, the safety, linebacker number 7, Jaheim Thomas, who's an Arkansas transfer, cornerback number 2, Ricardo Hallman, who I think last year led the nation in interceptions, and then defensive end number 8, Leon Lowry, who is a Syracuse transfer. And then on special teams, Matt Mitchell. I think this is where they've really stood out last week. They had a huge game against Northwestern on special teams in a lot of different ways impacting the game. But their punter, number 49, Atticus Bertrams, who's an Australian punter, does a really nice job for them a number of different ways. And then their kick returner, number 8, again, the wide receiver, Vinny Anthony, who is doing some good things for them as a returner right now. So the bye week was good, was able to get a ton of work done, not only from a self-scout perspective, but also really from a recruiting perspective, excuse me, as well. And, obviously this is going to be a big week for us. So had good practice on Sunday, a little bit different practice model. Obviously not having the previous game to watch film on or do corrections, able to get a little bit more of a head start on Wisconsin. And then we'll have practice tomorrow. So open up to questions.
Let's go to Rich Garcella, followed by Frank Bodani.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Good, Rich. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. James, how would you assess your wide receivers midway point of the season, and how big a factor do they have to be if teams continue to design defenses to stop the run?
Yeah, I think first of all, I've been pleased and impressed with our wide receiver room, with their production, with their ability to impact games, and then also different guys doing it. There's obviously last week, Julian Fleming had a huge game for us, or 2 weeks ago, excuse me. There's been games where Omari's been the guy. There's been games where obviously Liam Clifford has been the guy. There's been games when obviously Trey's been the guy. So I think that's helpful too, that a number of different guys have been impactful and making plays for us, which I think puts some challenges on the defense that there's not just one guy. But I think overall it's been good. I think we need more of that. We need to continue to develop it. We need to continue to grow it. We need to make sure we're continuing to create opportunities and take advantage of their strengths. I think that's going to be really important. I mean, obviously, not only the running backs, but I think we all know 44 is going to get a ton of attention moving forward as well. So I think your point is a fair one. there should be more opportunities for these guys because of that. But there's also going to need to be continued growth and production as the year goes on.
Let's go to Frank Bodani, followed by Mike Gross.
Hey, good afternoon, James.
Hey, Frank.
Hope you're well. Hi. Turning to defense, could you maybe do something similar? Evaluate a little bit your linebacker position. Have you gotten what you need and what you expected so far from that position? How do you look at it going forward the second half of the season there, especially with some of the new guys, young guys that I guess you would hope to be able to intersperse more? How do you look at that position?
Yeah, I think a little bit different than the wide receiver position from the standpoint that I think there was a lot of confidence coming into the year with the experience that we had at linebacker. Then we had some injuries and some other things that affected our depth. So I think overall, I think good. I think, Kobe and Elsdon and Dom, we've missed some time with Dom, but there's a core group of guys there that I think have played a ton of football for us. Obviously, Tony Rojas as well. And then I think the development of Dakari, I think, has been big. That is something I think he's really flourishing right now, and there's been a lot of conversation about it as well. But doing some great things for us on special teams and is probably playing better at the linebacker position for a guy that's never done it before than maybe we anticipated. But yeah, I think the group has been good. Tamir is another guy that has had some bumps and bruises and missed some time. He's a guy that's flashed, and we need him to continue to develop for us, not only on special teams but on defense. I think he has to continue to be a guy that his grow continues to evolve and grow as the season goes on. But with all the moving parts that we've had there, I've been pleased with it. And obviously, Kobe leads the way, and Tony and Dom, just based on experienced guys, and having all three of them healthy at the same time right now is valuable.
Let's go to Mike Gross, followed by Mark Wogenrich.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Good, Mike. How are you?
Good, thanks. Against in the Illinois game, the run, you were really dominant in the run game, 230 some yards. The last couple of weeks, less so, and obviously the game situation and what the defense is doing to you is a big factor in that. But how satisfied were you with the way you guys ran the ball the last couple of weeks? What you got out of the run game?
Yeah, I think for us, we got to do whatever we got to do to win, and that will be different each week, and that will look different each week based on, I think, your point, Mike, what we're doing offensively and what the game plan is, but also impacted by that is how the defense, decides to game plan and how the defense decides to play us. I mean, most teams are going to go into the game with something that they are adamant about that they're not going to give up, whether it's, hey, we're going to double team 44, or whether it's we're going to load the box to stop the run. Most people are going to kind of have a plan and say, we're going to stop this, and if they're going to beat us, they're going to beat us doing these things. And I think that really impacts a lot of this. Would we like more production in the running game? Yeah. Would we like more explosive plays in the running game? Yes. Has that been a discussion over the last week during the bye week? Yes. But again, if we go out there to play Wisconsin and they got 9 guys in the box, then we're going to still run the ball because we're committed to doing that. But the game may go differently in terms of our production in throwing the ball and our production in the run game. So all those things are kind of factored into how we're going to operate each week and what we're going to have to do to win.
Let's go to Mark Wogenrich, followed by Johnny McGonigal.
Hey, James. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Mark?
Good, thanks. Could KJ Winston return to play for Penn State this year? And then how has he contributed to that safety room otherwise off the field the last 6 weeks?
Yeah, I think I've somewhat answered that question in terms of the long-term injury, and that's about as far as I'm going to go with the details of that, which has been pretty typical long-term injury. But yeah, KJ, we are hoping for him to have a more significant impact in terms of leadership, in terms of all those other things. But right now, KJ's focus is on getting healthy. I actually visited with him and his family on Wednesday night, which was awesome. Me and Dex, that was great. But he's a huge part of our program, will continue to be a huge part of our program. But obviously, based on some of the things that he was working through from a health perspective, his focus was on that, which rightfully so.
Our last question from Zoom, Johnny McGonigal.
Hey, James, how are you?
Good, Johnny. How are you?
Good, good. Kind of a follow-up, but sticking with the safety position, Jalen Reed so far this season, team leading tackler, made some big plays, in the backfield, breaking up some passes. How would you assess how Jalen's played through 6 games?
Yeah, I think he's playing really well, and he's not just a guy that plays really well himself, but he impacts others. You watch him out there running the defense, communicating checks, just does a phenomenal job when he comes to the sideline. The information he's able to give us is extremely valuable, but playing very, very well. Typically, you don't want to be in a situation where your safety is leading in tackles, but as we know, he hasn't really just played a traditional safety role. He's also played the outside linebacker position as well. I'd like to see us get back to doing that. So as Day continues to develop and grow, being able to get all 3 of those guys on the field, I think is going to be important for us moving forward.
We'll go to questions in the room. Over here, Mark.
Hey, James. Hey, how you doing?
Good.
I noticed Cale came over to talk to the team. Could you tell me what goes into the decision to bring somebody like that over, and what was his message that you can share with us?
Yeah, we do it every year. He's come and spoke almost every year. We'll have different people from the campus and from the university come and speak during training camp, and then sometimes during a bye week. Obviously, Cale's done a phenomenal job, and is universally respected, not only across campus and in the community, but I know on our team specifically and in our locker room. So he came this summer, and I thought his message really resonated with our guys, so we brought him back to kind of double down on it, and it was good. But typically, we have coaches, ADs, administrators, the band, all these people come during the summer, and Cale was one of those guys this summer and did a nice job, like I mentioned, and I wanted to bring him back during the bye week and just kind of double down on it.
Can you share anything he said?
Yeah, really his message is really very consistent with the messages that we give our guys all the time. It's just a different voice delivering that, which is powerful. So it's not, the same message that we're delivering from the same people. It's a similar message. And I think a lot of it is about being present, being appreciative, and then the other one is controlling the things that you can control and not inhaling or reading or listening to outside voices or words was really the message.
Over here on the left, Mike.
Hey, James.
Hey, Mike.
I have a question about your role as a voter in the USA Today coaches pool. What's the process for that? Does it vary as the season goes along? And what's your strategy in voting for your own team in that pool?
Yeah, it doesn't vary a whole lot. Basically, I think Sunday mornings that's got to be in, I think, by 12 o'clock. Michael Hazel used to put this together for us. Now Will Ryman does that. He puts it together for us. We typically have the AP poll last week, the coaches poll, and then how we voted last week. And they're usually always pretty consistent for the most part, to be honest with you. But I look at that, and then I look at the whoever lost that week. Whoever won that week, that was in the top 25, who should come out of the top 25, who should go into the top 25 based on the previous weeks. I'm also a big proponent of the power conferences, just based on the competition that they play week in and week out, and the challenges that come with that. But for the most part, it's very, very similar to what you see out there publicly. There's very little differences between the AP poll, the coaches poll, and our poll that we put out every single week. Yeah, the same way we look at that everybody else is, and typically, again, it's pretty consistent, right? I think all three of us had it ranked exactly the same way this past week. There's some times where we have them voted, Penn State voted lower than what other maybe publications have us ranked, and there's a few times where we've been ranked a little bit higher. But then obviously it all comes out in the averages.
Over here on the right, John.
Hey, James, how are you?
Good, John. How are you?
Doing good. Tom and Andy both talked about Tyler Warren during the bye week. Tom mentioned how impressed he was with him at Indiana. Andy mentioned seeing his basketball highlights and being impressed with him from the jump. Was there a point this offseason where you knew that Tyler Warren would be a focal point of this offseason, or of this offense? And if so, when was it?
Yeah, I mean, no, we had a returning starter that we felt like was a really good player and would be a focal point. Obviously, him and Theo split time last year, so with Theo gone, I think everybody on our team and everybody on our staff felt like the guys that had returning production and starters would be focal points on our offense. So, that would probably be the two running backs, and that would be Tyler. And there was a lot of discussion about some of the wideouts. I think Trey is a guy that was kind of part of that conversation as well. But those were probably the guys, pretty obvious probably to everybody. But it's not like there was a shift or a change. That was kind of our thoughts coming into the season. And it's continued to be that way. But just like the running game, depending on how people play you each week, that could change.
In the back, Allie.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, Allie.
You just talked about it when you talked about Cale's message, not inhaling, reading, getting too sucked into the hype for players. We've been at this point in the past couple of seasons before where you start talking about maybe complacency or kind of resetting that message here mid-season to make sure you finish the season strong. What is that message right now when it comes to, hey, we've done a lot of really good things, but you can't just kind of rest on what you've previously done. You got to keep looking forward.
Yeah, we really don't talk about that. It's just about getting better. We need to get better. We needed to get better last week. We need to get better each week. That is collectively. That's on each side of the ball. That is by position. That is by individual. That's coaches. That's players. That's everybody. So we really just focus on getting better every week and focus on studying our opponent and giving it the necessary amount of respect, and then doing whatever we got to do to be 1-0. But the message really doesn't change a whole lot. We're trying to be as consistent as we possibly can in our approach, and that is for the most part served us well.
On the right, Audrey.
Good afternoon. I wanted to kind of go back to the conversations you had with Andy before you hired him. What do you maybe recall about those conversations, and how have they aligned with what he's been able to do throughout the first half of the season with this offense?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is probably obvious to you guys. It's overall philosophy, offensively. It is the ability to create explosive plays. Obviously, was a big part of the conversation. Based on how last year played out. It was the ability to run or pass and balance, and then it was studying on film and in conversation about kind of plays that he had focused on and plays that we had focused on, and probably the biggest difference from what we've done in the past is probably a little bit more option. true option, not off of read option, but true option. That was probably the one thing that was a little bit different in the conversations. But to be honest with you, very similar. It was also about coming in here and only changing what we had to change, because again, it wasn't necessarily broke. It was that we needed to take the next step from a production standpoint, and specifically from an explosive play perspective. So I think it's been very similar to what we talked about. I think he's been comfortable because we spent a lot of time talking about how we operate and how we do things and what my expectations are, and weekly practice schedules and spring ball and summer and all those types of things. And then also, from the other, perspective, getting an idea of how he wanted to operate and how he wanted to function. And then also, talking to people, like their head coach, as well as people on their staff as well. So I think for the most part, for both sides, for me and for him, I think it's played out for the most part the way we both expected it to be.
In the middle, Shane.
Hey, Coach.
Hey, Shane.
In terms of your defense, you've had slow, I guess you call them slow starts, where you come on better in the second half defensively. How much of that is kind of a feeling out process where you get a snapshot of how teams call over a half and adjust accordingly, or is it more the defense just needs to play better from the start?
Yeah, I don't know if I would define it that way. I think I don't have the stats in front of me, but score by quarter, we've given up yards in the first quarter, but I wouldn't say we've started slow on defense. Maybe some opening drives, but I wouldn't describe it the way you described it. I don't have those stats in front of me, but I think what our defense has done a good job of is game planning and have a specific idea of where we're at, what we're trying to do this week, how we're trying to cause stress on the offense, and then as quickly as we possibly can figure out, are they playing in a similar fashion that we expected them to play based on our film study, or are they doing a bunch of tendency breakers? I think a few weeks ago we had a team, I think on second and long, they had been 100%, pass in those situations. So, your whole game plan is based on that. And then right away early in the game, they ran the ball to break a tendency. And I think those things are important is you want to study your opponent's tendencies to understand what they are and how you're going to game plan and how you're going to call your game. But then you also need to be aware they should be aware of what their tendencies are as well. So I think once we got a pretty good beat of what people are doing, is it consistent with what we've seen on film? Are there exceptions? Being able to make those adjustments as a coaching staff and be able to make those adjustments with the players, then we played pretty good defense, really for 4 quarters. Do you have that information? Yeah, so we have given up 24 points in the first quarter. We've given up 36 points in the second quarter. As we all know, our third quarters have been phenomenal at 3 points and then 24 points. So really, depending on how you're defining how well you're playing on offense and defense, to me it's about points. We've given up the same amount of points in the first quarter and the fourth quarter. We've been really great in the third quarter, which has been documented a lot. And second quarters has probably been the quarter where, we've given up the most points. So your point is a fair one in terms of yards, but I think we've played pretty good except for opening drives. We need to clean some of those things up.
On the right, Tyler.
Hey, James, hope you're well.
Hey, Tyler.
Quentin Martin got in for his third game at USC. That means he can get in for 2 out of the next 6 and burn his red shirt. So is he moved over into that green light territory? And regardless, how have you seen him maybe pick things up or gain something since Cam went down?
Yeah, so the way I would describe him right now, he's still a yellow, but he's a yellow where he understands and the coaches understand if we have to play him to win games, we're going to do that, and everybody's comfortable in doing that. I'd prefer to manage it as much as we possibly can, so that we still have that flexibility and that choice moving forward. But at this stage, we're still trying to preserve it, to have flexibility come the end of the year. And when Nick, was working through some bumps and bruises, that made it more challenging to do that. So nothing has really changed from that standpoint at this stage. Yeah, I think, again, that goes back to me saying that I think that the kid, as well as the coaching staff, is ready to play him and feel like if we need him to win games, we will. And I think, to answer your question specifically, he's done a good enough job that the coaches feel like this is a weekly conversation on what we want to do with him. Because I think if we did green light him, there is ways that we would take advantage of his skill set in a 21 personnel package. The challenge that I respond with that is every rep that we give him is a rep that we're taking away from Nick and Katron. And that's also something we're trying to manage as well as a coaching staff. And I know J1 is specifically, early on in the season, there was conversations about ball distribution and things like that. It wasn't a whole lot of conversations about those two guys. When you have a third back that you're trying to factor in, if you're going to burn his red shirt, then you got to play him. And if you're going to play him, then that takes reps away from those other two guys. And if those other two guys are healthy, I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense at this stage. But the young man is doing everything right at this stage. And I think there's a ton of confidence in him, and a ton of confidence in our coaching staff has in him as well. And I think he has a ton of confidence in himself. I actually think Corey's coming on as well. So I think he's a guy that we could look at a little bit like the defensive ends with Max and Harvey, that I could see us maybe even possibly having Corey as the third back here at some point as well, hopefully to preserve Quentin too.
In the front, Neil.
Hey, James.
Hey, Neil.
When you come off a big weekend in college football and you're on a bye and there were so many kind of interesting high-profile games, and with the playoff, does that open up a door of just some potential opponents down the road? Do you guys learn from, you and the staff learn from watching some bits and pieces of these games, or do you have to try to suppress that?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that, right? It's hard for I wasn't in the best position to do that because I left Wednesday night and didn't get back here until 11 o'clock Saturday night on the road recruiting. So there wasn't a whole lot of that going on, watching other games and teams like that. But during the bye week, are you getting ahead on your next opponent? Yes. Are you also, with the staff sizes now, able to get ahead on some other opponents or possible future opponents and things like that? Yeah, a little bit, but again, you better make sure that the right amount of attention, focus, and respect is paid to your next opponent on your schedule, the one-and-oh mentality. But there are some work ahead things going on too.
Well, obviously just wanted to say thank you once again. Obviously, I sat up here last week and talked about making this environment, this opportunity, and then capitalize on it. And made a special appeal to our fans to make it a home field advantage. And I know there's been times where that's been shown up over the last 4 years, different times. I distinctly remember, ironically, the UTSA game when Josh McCray scored going into that end zone and saw the student section erupt, and that was UTSA on a losing cost, right? So I had a feeling to have a ranked opponent like Michigan, defending national champ, to come in, and if we're able to do good things, we might hear that crowd pretty good. And thought we heard it for 4 quarters. And plus, turned around and there was a bunch of people around us out on the field. So just a really good feeling. I want to say thank you to you guys as well, not just the media that's here, but media that covers us, right? Like, obviously, we had to play the game and put it in a position to be successful, but the coverage around it, even CBS, I shot Ness a note, and I thought everything they did to make that game very special, very unique. was pretty awesome to have them do our game this week. Has been pretty cool to communicate back with them that they're going to have us going forward. I thought for all the people that have been coming to Illinois games for a long time, that day had built up for a long time. Lauren, to see your article, like just to see the bits and pieces of history that have unfolded, and then now to be a part of that. The only regret I had the whole time is because of those jerseys, those uniforms, and those helmets, I never really went through our players what the process needed to be afterwards, so they all tried to grab them and snake them, right? And created some tense moments for our equipment staff and truth be told, Jake Ross and our equipment staff and a lot of people in athletics really made those moments really special because of the work they did to create those uniforms, to give Nike a lot of feedback, Nike itself to give us the opportunity. So, again, just a million thanks to a lot of different people to make that crowd what it was. Not only a crowd that was here, but a crowd watching it. Obviously, not everybody can come to an Illinois football game that wants to come because of the location and distance and factors in their own life, but I think we had a lot of fans watching it at home, and then also I think we created a lot of new fans. It's been fun to see people reach out, say things to me, hey, never been an Illinois fan before, but we are now, like just really, really good things. So rewarded on Sunday, guys, as MVPs offensively, we gave it to Tanner Arkin and Josh Geske, and I thought those two guys, very unique pass and stories, right? So Tanner came in as a transfer through the portal in our has been in our program now, and really the rewards of what you see from him physically are the things that he did through Tank and our development and our philosophy there. And Josh Geske, ironically, was a guy that I used to showcase Friday night at a speech that he gave before fall camp started about during his time here, the challenges he faced coming in during COVID, the things that a lot of freshmen come in and battle through. I talked last week about, taking 365 days of our preparation to win a game like that. You didn't have to just start that week. It starts a long time ago. Well, Geske's journey started 3 years ago, right? And have him put himself in a position to develop the body physically, mentally, the skill set with Bart and the offensive line, but he played his best game since I've been here, arguably against two of the best players he's played against all year, right? So to see a guy play that way, I've always said this. I had an offensive lineman, in my opinion, Gabe Karimi, was a guy I coached in the past who was a good player, was probably a high-level third, second, maybe a first-round guy, and he had a stretch during our first Big Ten championship year where he played against Michigan, Ohio State, and I believe Iowa. Claiborne was a D lineman. He blocked those guys up 3 weeks in a row against good competition and jumped himself into the 24th pick in the first round for Chicago Bears. I think that came from playing against good people, right? So I really challenged our guys. You want to make a name for yourself, start playing good against good people, and good things happen. So really excited. Those two guys, our defensive look guys, were General Hunt, T.J. Griffin, Vernon Woodward, and Demetrius Hill. All really did a great job defensively. We took a lot of guys into account just to play that way. Obviously, I know you know the stats. Aaron just got up here and debriefed you, right? But we gave it to Dennis Briggs, Dylan Rosiak, Seth Coleman, T-Rod Edwards, Matt Bailey, Zeke Holmes. And last but not least, Gabe Ackus, who also within the last 10 minutes, it's been announced has become the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week, right? So just to have the culmination of him in that game was really cool. Our offensive look guys, Aaron Ball, P.D. Olay, Hugh Bengers, and Mario Sanders. Those guys always do a great job, but really did a good job last week. And then our special teams MVP, Zeke Holmes and T.J. McMillan, and our special teams look out, DJ Demetrius Johns, just really had a good week overall as well as in our game plan. So with that, we'll turn the page. And the game that ahead of us, obviously a chance to play the number one team in the country is always special. New Oregon going into this season was going to have a very good football team. However, it played out when we made this trip. We knew that it was going to be on the back end of a 4-week window here where we have two home games back-to-back with Purdue and Michigan. Now to go on the road, our biggest trek of the year. Obviously, we went to Penn State. Still have to go to Rutgers on the back end, but just logistically, miles-wise, this will be the longest trek we have. Because it's going west, we're leaving on a Thursday, so it brings a lot of unique preparation into our week. Shortens our work week as coaches, not really as players. They're just going to leave a day early. We'll take full advantage of that and all that goes into it. A lot of education with our players. They've done things very, very well about living their routine, so now we just got to adjust our routine a little bit, but still live the routine the way it needs to. Have a super amount of respect, a young coach in his career, Dan Lanning, as soon as I met him several years back, but down to be around him since coming into conference and what you've seen him accomplish in his career already, just a very bright, intelligent football coach who's very gifted, and then the background that he shares being with Kirby and Nick, you can see the accomplishments he has already done and what's ahead of him. A very accomplished football team, good players all over the place. Offensively, a quarterback, in my opinion, that is playing as good as anybody in the country. A guy that really gets rid of the ball. He's been a couple different spots, but he's learned along the way, and has made Oregon his home, and seen different stories about what he watched and growing up and what he was. This dream to play at Oregon is really special to him. So when you got a quarterback in that environment with a team around him, is always a challenge. Defensively, they're very good, very well coached. But I like our guys. I like our crew. I like the way our guys have responded. I think this is a nitty group, a group that just kind of does what they have to do to get things done. Unfortunately, have been staying pretty healthy. Really don't expect to have anybody from this past game that won't be at this week's game. Everybody's cleared and ready to roll. So got to be very smart in our preparation. Super excited. I didn't even realize this. Read Bret's notes that this is my 200th game as a head coach. So once again, proved to myself I'm getting old. But I see all these other coaches get accomplishments and things, and I see that. It just kind of blows my mind. Just super enjoyable ride that we're on right now, and super excited about this weekend's opportunity and making the most of it. So with that, open up for questions.
Success and winning kind of usually breeds a positive buzz within any organization or team. Are you feeling that from inside the program with the guys and with the staff? Or?
Oh, well, sure. I mean, everybody, I think, loves winning more than losing, right? But the repercussions or the rewards of that, right, are just national exposure. To be, I don't know if you've gotten your Bret's bonus stats he always gives, right? Like, I don't know the last time we played 2 back-to-back CBS games. I'm sure it's been a little bit. So that's a positive. For those that follow recruiting, I'm expecting to get some good news soon, I would imagine. So I think there's going to be some byproducts of that for us in the recruiting world. We're really starting to, Pat and I have really talked about what I'm doing during our second bye week, and we've kind of adjusted and tweaked how we're going to go about that to get some specific targets and be around some people that we want them to feel our presence, all right? So that's a big one. And then just overall, like I made an appeal last week to make that place feel special. The more we can fill that to a sellout crowd, that makes life in Department of Intercollegiate Athletics here at the University of Illinois. It makes it better for our university. It makes it better for our guys in NIL opportunities. It makes it better in a lot of different ways financially, right? Which I think is a really big thing of today's world, especially in college football. So, yeah, a lot of positives.
Aaron talked about really simplifying things defensively again. I guess in your time as a coordinator in the head, what's the value of that? It's just to kind of dial it back and do what's comfortable.
Yeah, I've never been a big call sheet guy, right? And I kind of really stressed that coming out of the Purdue game. Like, less is best is something that I really believe. Now, defensively, I think you say that. Offensively, I don't know if that's the case, right? But defensively, the more that they can line up and get in a position, I always say this, the more you get your cleats in the grass, right? And set for a moment before the play is snapped and know what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it, that really helps defensively. So offense guys always have 3 unique advantages. They know the play, they know the snap, and they know what they're doing once the ball is snapped, right? Defensive guys can't get lined up till they're lined up. They don't know the snap, and they don't know what they're doing until the other guy moves, right? So the more confidence you can instill them before the ball is snapped, the better off you can play.
You've had a great deal of success before you had a family,
Mm-hmm.
but now you have a family. How much more fun is this to have the girls there, have your wife there, just go through what that's been like the last couple of weeks? Seems like you're always having a good time with them.
Yeah, I just think it just makes those moments that much more special. Listen, I love every moment of winning with my team. I think our guys feel that, but I think part of that is as I developed a family, I remember being a young coach at the University of Wisconsin, told them I was getting engaged. And the place went crazy, right? And Aaron Henry was a player, and he came up to me and gave me a hug and said, congratulations, right? So it kind of made a statement to me back then that, like, when I have a family, I want our family, which is my football team, to see me with my family, right? So that's a big one. I know Jen was super excited because of the timing of that game, a 2:30 game. We didn't have any dance conflicts or gymnastics or whatever we're doing, whatever the flavor of the week. The girls were talking all week about getting to go into my game, the whole game. They were at the Illini walk. And then pretty much standard normal, if they're in the crowd, Chris Williams and the security do a great job of getting those kids to me because I want them to share in that moment. And then Jen, it was Jen's idea, my wife, right? Happy wife, happy life. But she said if we could do that exit through the stadium that we go over there in the tower. To have the girls in my arms or to have the girls with us was pretty awesome. And, Brexley was high-fiving fans like she was, a seasoned NFL vet. And then they got over there and they're like, I'm shaking. And I think they were faking the shaking, but they were pretty excited. So Jen's coaching them up on their on-camera demeanor. Apparently they don't smile enough. So we gotta get them up and rolling. But, yeah, a special day on many levels.
Bret, it seemed like on Saturday that JMO felt really good about rotating his guys in his room in and out. And I'm just curious, since camp opened up, or even before then, what you've seen in the development of that room.
Well, first, JMO, in my opinion, is the best defensive line coach in the country. He, I've known him for a long time, promoted him now a couple times. His maturity, his growth as a coach just continues to just pour over into our players. I think our guys know sometimes if you don't phrase it the right way, guys are mad when they're getting subbed out. You just see our guys just kind of move in and out. It's kind of something I learned even better way to phrase it when I went to the NFL. If you got a guy that's over that 290, 300-pound range, a lot of guys don't play more than 40 reps. Like you try to keep that window, that sweet spot of big guys at a place where they can play effective football and play well. So, you look at T. Edwards, who's literally matured through our process and understand how we're doing things, and he is playing at such a high level right now that I think he'd be the first to tell you he plays a lot of the snaps, but we also roll him quite a bit, and he's rewarded because of that. So, yeah, I think Dennis Briggs played his best game. Alex Beret has just been another kid that just continues it, and he's such a young player. His ability to play with extension and run and do some things, I'm excited about that room.
You've been reaching out to high school recruits since that Michigan win, and how's it gone so far?
Yeah, we literally started that night. There was a lot of recruits. We actually had more offers on our campus than any other point in my career since being here at Illinois. So there was a lot of guys on campus. It was kind of funny to walk through that crowd, and all of a sudden you'd see somebody familiar face, and I'd grab them. The locker room was awesome. But, yeah, I started talking and communicating with guys that night. And then on Sunday, there's some rules now that are in play, who we can contact and not contact. But even the guys that I can't reach out to, they were reaching out to us. Had a guy that was committed to us who's a really good player for us. Unfortunately, he rolled his ankle the night before, right, and sent me a text that morning. But to go back and forth with him before, during, and after, not during, I wouldn't text him during, but after, and, have those guys watching, that goes a long way.
You mentioned after Saturday's game is that by winning you made this coming week bigger, and Oregon moved to number one, which I think makes it even bigger. I mean, is there going to be much talk about, I don't know, the moment or opportunity? Is it just this is Oregon, we're going there, and
no, good point. I think for me as a head coach to ignore that would probably be silly, right? I know that the last time Illinois played here, like I saw Jay talk the other day, right? So, I'm sorry, last time on the road, correct? Was with Jay. So they don't come around very often. Even when I was, at Wisconsin, we were rolling and winning 3 straight Big Ten titles. I didn't get to play number one very often. We did it once, beat Ohio State. That I know that one jumps out of my mind. I believe in the SEC. I played Alabama a couple times. They were number one. Mississippi State, I believe, was number one. We had them down to we led the whole game and unfortunately couldn't close. That was when Dak was there. So to get those moments are great, but a lot of times it's kind of like it doesn't take 100 years like last week's Fiesta, but if Texas had beat Georgia, my guess is Texas probably would have stayed at number one. So when I saw that unfolding, I was at dinner at the Champaign Country Club with my family and a group of friends, and we were kind of watching that unfold, and I'm like, well, looks like we're going to play number one, right? Because that had to happen. So I think it's an awesome thing. So we got to know that that's the number one team in the country. There's a reason they're number one. They're a very good football team. They execute very, very well. But how we play is going to be in our hands, and how we plan is in our preparation. So I think that part doesn't change very much.
A couple times, like when guys regurgitate what you say, you kind of know you've got something. Like, how did you cultivate? It seems like they do that. Like, how do you feel like you cultivated that?
I don't think there's a lot of mixed messaging. No, I would also tell you, right, like I don't let a lot of people talk to our team, right? Like I've been here 4 years, and we've had guest speakers. We have guest captains. Josh was off the charts on Friday. That message was unbelievable. I know our players regurgitated him. So I think I kind of learned there too, right? If you have repeated messages, they'll go, and Josh gave a great message. But I know it maybe sounds like I have a lot of messages, but I really don't compared to other places. Sometimes people, put out a new bumper sticker every week, right? Like I kind of stay with the same thing. And at different times I emphasize different things. and that's probably what I hear more than anything. Like last week, there was definitely 2 or 3 messages that I literally read, several times the same messaging, right? So, but then it permeates into the crowd, right, into the fan base, and I can't tell you how many people. I have some of our biggest donors were on the field or were at the game, and they would like text me something along the lines of tough, smart, dependable, or everyday mentality, like whatever it was, and I think that's when you can kind of gain in, like if it's not. I try to build a foundation on principles, right? And you can't build the top top floor or the upper level until you build the foundation. So we've spent a lot of time building the foundation. Now we're going to start layering it up, and I think that's when it really starts to take effect.
You talked about capitalizing. We need to capitalize on it and recruiting on this. I mean, obviously the sell gets better, and you can sell these certain things. But is there anything specific you can change when you do well in recruiting, or to capitalize on it?
Well, to be honest, right, NIL is a donor-driven business, right? Like, and you got to have the, that bank account has to match what you can give out, right? And I haven't held back, right? 2 years ago or last year, we were in what I've been told, the lowest NIL budget in the entire conference, and in my opinion, we underperformed in a season that was frustrating, right? This year, we're I think somewhere in the right about the 12th, 13th spot, right? So we're not quite midway. We're about a third of the way up. So we're in the top part of the bottom third. So I'm not saying that's where we want to live, but if we can start getting ourselves in a position just to be in the top half, right, and be in that moment, I'm excited about what I can do, and that's why I keep telling Josh and administration, like, if you just give us the opportunity, right? Like, I think some really good things can happen. I think what's great is when we got here, I partnered with Brad right away. Like, he was a guy that we knew commonly, and I know where they stand in the NIL world in basketball, and they've been rewarded very well because of it. If we can get in that moment, I think that football can sustain that. Fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, recruiting sometimes now isn't really recruiting. It's budgeting, right? And I think we can do that very effectively. But we just got to make sure we have the right type of budget.
Does that apply to the transfer portal? You have former transfers playing huge roles this year, really key roles for the team. Is that part of it too? Looking at the portal after the season?
Well, I think one of the greatest assets I had no idea I was living when I was dealing with it was to go to New England and to go to New York and be in the NFL for 3 years and realize the effect that free agency can have on your roster in a short amount of time. And I distinctly remember I was a defensive line coach in the New England Patriots, and there was an article written before the year started that we were the lowest paid defensive line in the NFL, 32 of 32. And at the end of the year, we were the number one performing defensive line in the NFL, number one of 32, right? And those guys, after we got done that year, Danny Shelton, Lawrence Guy, Dietrich Wise, those guys all then signed the largest contracts in their NFL careers after that year, right? And that showed to me what a great moment with, in my opinion, a good opportunity can be rewarding for a student, right? Or in that case, a player. And we kind of do some of that stuff here, right? I would just tell you that, overall our guys are taken care of, but probably not. I know there are probably a half a dozen guys on our roster, four guys on offense, and I know for sure 2 guys, maybe 3 guys on defense that were offered probably double the amount of money, if not triple the amount of money that was afforded here, and they turn it down because they know what they're being developed to be. I always say NIL money is great. The I stands for instant. And NFL money, the F stands forever. And we've been putting out NFL players around here and also in my career as good as anybody in the country. And I think that attracts a lot of good players.
Did you remember the past, prepare for the future mentality, kind of compared to the amount of guys in your roster that were here in 2022, saw the start, and then saw how that year finished?
There is that, but I would tell you that's a one that, so we have 4 team goals, right? And the first one is remember the past and prepare for the future. That was voted in by our players at the beginning of the year. Now, we had a list of 28 items, and then I kind of shimmy it down to about 10 to 12, and then I talked to the leadership council, and I came up with combining those 12 things into 4 ideas, and then I sent it to them, and they just kind of like, Coach Levitt, and we kind of build it off of there, right? So that one was player created. Now it's a messaging that I think we say and talk a lot about, but I'll point to it a lot. I'll circle it and talk about. I usually start my meeting with the tough, smart, dependable block I, and then over on the side are our 4 season goals, and I'll usually hit something like when we were playing Purdue, right? There's a goal that was very specific about getting a cannon, so I just kept circling the cannon every day, right? And last week was a lot about, hey, we've been in this moment, right? We had a chance at Penn State, and we didn't take advantage of it, so I talked about, hey, remember the past and plan for the future. So the best part about Penn State was, right, that it happened. It's obviously the worst part was the loss, but the double worst part, if that's a word, right, is to not capitalize on what you learned, right? And our guys did that. And then this week to go on the road to Oregon, right, to have Penn State in our hip pocket and a part of our past, that I've been told it's the most intense, loud environment. I played there as I was a GA, and it really wasn't a close game, so it probably never got as loud as it could be. But I know we're going to Oregon with the preparation, understanding that this will be the loudest venue that we've ever played in, right?
But to have that many guys on your roster know how 2022 started, and does that have any benefit at all?
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, Luke wasn't here. Melvin Priestley wasn't here. J.C. Davis wasn't here. Tanner Arkin wasn't here. On defense, Dennis Briggs wasn't here. I think Alec Bryant was here. Yeah, there's some defensive guys, Miles and those guys, but I do think we have a locker room that really communicates, and I think guys share stories, right? So I see T-Raw Edwards and Dennis Briggs together every day, right? I'm pretty sure T-Raw shared with them that story, right? I think there's guys in our locker room that communicate and talk on a regular basis way more than I see them talk, right? So I think our guys share those stories and those moments, and that's probably what makes it happen.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Just like a typical Monday, kind of quickly recapping Saturday night. Phil, like I said before, really proud of the guys. Just talk about the response. Multiple times in the game, we needed a response, what other phase it was, and we got that done. We throw an interception in the first half, defense bows up 3 and out, and we get the missed field goal. A big-time response there. I think Iowa opens the second half with a scoring drive, come back right there and answer that offensively. Get the game within the fourth quarter. They get the game within 1 score, and offense puts together a drive to respond to that. So just was really pleased with that. Also talked to the teams, yesterday a little bit. Again, these things are going to be 4-quarter games. Played our best in the fourth quarter when we needed it and finished that way. Offensively, mentioned it. It showed up on tape. The balance, I think that was just critically important for the whole operation to be able to run the football like that and then complement it with some explosion in the pass game. Both Marsh, Montori were huge for us. They show up in the stat book, but also they were doing a great job blocking down the field. They had a couple that allowed our backs to crease. The backs, I think, ran pretty physical. It was nice to see a couple of those youngsters actually get a carry too. By far, O-line best game, on the same page, did a good job with it, and I think it was Aiden's most complete game after watching the tape. Still some things to grow from, not just Aiden and the whole offense, but overall, when you move in against what I still think is pretty good defense in Iowa, a good effort there. Defensively, stopping the run, throughout the night, the goal was to kind of almost just contain the run game. It did a great job against it. We gave up the 1 crease, so that made the stats look a whole lot better. And it really started with the front 7 at the line of scrimmage, D-line, defensive ends and the inside backers, and got to talking to him about it yesterday. Yeah, front 7, we played 17 different guys in that front 7. We talked about the rotation we've done at D-line, but even in the linebacker level, the rush position, 17 different guys played in the front 7 and did great. Nakai, huge play on the interception, had a nice game as well. And then looking at it, Jonathan Kim, those things were huge, and it was accurate. Now, you talk about the snap to the hold, the thing is down, because we actually showed a couple of things, field goal protection-wise, there was, a little leakage that we got to tighten up, but, Kim was so critical in that thing to maintain momentum and whatnot. So, pleased again with the performance. Crowd helped us again. Appreciate Spartan Nation all the time when we're playing at home. Moving forward, we got a huge week in front of us. We all know this thing is special. Rivalry weeks in the state. This is what college football is about, and so this is a big, meaningful game. Anticipating it being a tough, physical, big challenge Saturday night at their place, and we're looking forward to we're going to have a great week of work and preparation leading into this one. Questions?
Hey, Jonathan, how much, what's the challenge when it looks like they're not going to name a starting quarterback, and how you prepare for, they played 3 guys there and then And doubling down, like the look you got against Iowa, where they're a run-heavy team, how much did that help prepare you for Michigan, which likes to do the same?
Yeah, you prepare what you see on tape, and we've got tape of all their players that have played offensively. Again, it is about a run game because this run game of theirs is potent, can be unique in some of their schemes. They do a nice job with that, and so it's a physical brand of football that we got to get ready for.
I'm wondering, when you come out of a game like that, managing the emotions of a big win versus managing the emotions of a rivalry, how have you guys tried to handle that this week? I guess, is there, because D'Antonio used to say that, you want to peak towards the end of the week. How do you kind of build towards that?
Yeah, I think, again, you're building toward putting your best, performance, but your best energy ready to go on game day on Saturday. Our approach has stayed pretty consistent. We play a game on Saturday and we come in on Sunday and deeply look at it. Whatever the score was, we deeply look at it, approach it, find ways that we can build off of, things that we got to get fixed. That was no different yesterday. And then, we're going to put heavy work in on Tuesday, Wednesday, and on the physical side. And then it turns into more tightened details mentally as we get closer. I don't have any doubt that our guys will be excited, ready to go Saturday.
Jonathan, why do you think the running game was so much better Saturday night? And we always talk about third down conversions. How important was the first down success, being ahead of the sticks?
Yeah, the run game, it was better. Look, we had a bye week to take a look at a couple of things that we need to do better. I think that showed up on Saturday. Don't want to give all our schematics here, but we had a little bit more variety, whether we're under the center or in the gun. You saw Aiden run a little bit more, and that contributed to some of the success. And anytime, 3rd and 8 versus 3rd and 2, there's going to be a huge difference in your third down conversions.
Unlike most of your predecessors as head coach, you don't have any history with Michigan. Did you feel it coming in? I mean, just going around and feeling what this rivalry meant, even in recruiting. Do you have a feel for that? And obviously, you'll get one this week. But any preconception of that?
I definitely felt it upon arrival. I think I got asked about him even with my introductory press conference, and so no, I felt it since getting here, understanding this is an important game, most important regular season game we'll play, and the passion for it, which I love being a part. I've been in multiple in-state rivalries, and so no question, it's been well received on my end that this thing is important.
Is there a game in this series you ever watched, either in your coaching career or even before that you remember or not?
No, I seem to remember some highlights. I remember, a punter that, not going there in regards to multiple, but that one stands out.
Jonathan, we saw Alante warming up on Saturday. I was wondering, do you expect him to play this week? And
Alante Brown?
Yeah, and what he brings to this offense, because we barely saw him in that opener.
Yeah, we'd be anxious to get him back because he helps us not just offensively and on the return game. He's getting really close to being fully confident to go out there. And so, we hope to have him for the back half of this season here, like I say, offensively and in the return game.
With Coach Moore being a first-time, full-time head coach for Michigan, this being your first year with the Spartans, kind of a new era in this rivalry. Do you look at it from that angle at all, how special that is?
Well, I know it's new for me, and excited to be a part of it on that end. And so looking at it, they get some similarities, schemes from the last year or two, but each year is new. They got some new stuff, and obviously we're pretty new on that side too.
Jonathan, you mentioned there's just no escaping there's some differences with this game. Do you try to embrace any of that in practice this week, or you try to make things as normal and consistent as possible with just sort of not being able to avoid what it all means?
To me, you definitely try to look for some consistency in your practices, your approach. At the same time, this game is different, and so we started with that a little bit yesterday. Just educating all of us, right? We got 61 new guys on the roster the first year here, coaches included, and so we talked about a little bit of the history and educating them there yesterday. So we are doing a few things that are different.
Coach, I know a lot of coaches look at the analytics when you especially get down to the red zone. You credit Kim for making those 6 field goals. What goes into the decision making whether to keep the offense out on fourth down or go for the fourth or field goal?
Yeah, there's a lot. So the opponent, the game flow, what you anticipate the score being. Is this going to be high scoring, low scoring? Obviously, the distance matters. 4th and 1's a different 4th and 5. Where the current score on there is a field goal going to separate? You're looking oftentimes to get it to a 2-score game or separate. So, a 4th down decision, if we're up 3, oftentimes it can be an error on being a little bit more aggressive because you kick it and make it, it's 6 points, that's still a 1-score game. If the game's a 6-point game and you kick it, it turns into 9, you can be way more aggressive on that kind of thing. So that's the logic of 3 points versus 7. A lot goes into it.
And then Nick Marsh, 18-year-old kid from Detroit here, second breakout game of the season. Yeah. What have you seen just in the growth from him?
Yeah, he works, man. He's got obviously some talent, but his work ethic and really his maturity, understand the schemes. He's got savviness well beyond being 18 years old on how the style of route running he does. I think we did target him 7 times. He had 7 catches the other night, and we want to continue to find ways to get him the ball.
2 separate questions. One, because we covered it a lot last week with the night games, but what is there a benefit to maybe having the muscle memory of the day schedule with how many night games you've had going into this one?
Yeah, I think routine is good, and so if they've gotten into a rhythm, we've played at night, and so what the routine of really Saturday has turned out to be inconsistent, being at night, and so they know their routine of what they need to do to get themselves prepared to go has been beneficial.
And the second part, we talked about Aiden, you mentioned about him running more. What's the balance with that? And is there, I don't know if concern's the right word, but do you have conversations, particularly in a rivalry game where the hitting gets a little more intense, maybe the after whistle stuff gets a little more intense, to just manage and balance the decisions to stay in the pocket versus taking off?
Yeah. You're managing that all the time. We definitely want him to be a passer of the football. We want to make plays from the pocket. His skill set oftentimes does allow him to extend the play. And then, yes, in the run game can be a ball carrier, but we want to be smart with it. We're not going to ask him to carry it 25 times most games, that type of thing, but we want to be smart when we're toward the sideline. And I flip it on the other side. Defensively, we got to be smart around the sidelines, and after the play type stuff is not going to help you win the game.
Jonathan, do you know any of the guys on that staff at all?
Not deeply, to be honest with you. I've run across a couple of them. I'm trying to think here, but no, not deeply.
You mentioned on Sunday sort of the education of 61 new guys, new staff toward this game. What did that look like? Like, who led that? How do you guys go about that?
Well, I gathered a ton of information. I read through a lot there, and I highlighted some things. It really focused a lot around the Paul Bunyan Trophy and kind of what that means. This game's different. We're playing for this trophy. Gave them a little bit of the history. Learned myself kind of on that end. That's where it started with the education of the guys.
This is no genius deduction by me, but Aiden had his best night on the same night your offensive line had their best game. You were able to run the football. My question is, that opens up his dual threat when you're getting all cylinders. That's not coincidental, right?
Yeah, all those things go hand in hand without question. The ability to get positive games in the run game. I did think the protection was solid throughout the night. Of course, you can analyze this thing. You go back on the tape. We were on some edges. And again, Iowa had a good defensive front, and we're facing a very similar, if not better, defensive front this week. And so we got to find ways to continue to tighten it up. And again, we're on tape now with a little bit of new scheme of having some success. And this is college football. They got good coaches over there in scheme, and so we got to be ready to adjust and adapt to what we see on Saturday.
Michigan's blocked a kick in 3 straight games. Is that something that you have to prepare for, or as well as Jonathan's kicking, you just let him go?
Well, we got to prepare for it. We're not going to hesitate to get Kim out there. He's a weapon, but we got to shore up some details on that thing. And I mean, that's one of the. If you're on field goal protection, that's not every guy's favorite play to be in on. But asking those guys to sound up in there and because it's a huge part of it, and you're definitely correct. Michigan creates some problems in that area.
Jonathan, I mean, obviously this is a game both teams are going to get up for, but do you have, I guess, the sense that they're coming off a national championship, been in the playoff 3 straight years, and now they're 4-3, and they're kind of back against the wall as far as saving their season. Does that enter anything into it?
You know, the back against the wall description, I mean, we are now in the back half, and these games mean more, right? As you want to put a successful season together. And so I think it's not just for us in this game, for the entire conference. You look at this thing week in and week out. I mean, you got to bring your A game to earn victories, and so this one will be no different.
Jonathan, you mentioned Saturday night, one of those situations where Aiden had sort of like the inside and outside caller, and we see him making a lot of stuff, doing a lot of things with line of scrimmage. Can you sort of quantify how much freedom he has up there? Like, is it everything that's available to him? Will there be more to him as he gets older?
Yeah.
Where's that sort of?
We try to. It's not everything involved. He can just call any random play he wants. We're not there yet, but there's a lot. Whether it's run to run, run to pass. Pass to run. Sometimes it's just a protection thing on getting that. Sometimes we've got multiple plays called, and so yeah, we're running it or we're not running it, and then we definitely are just making things up out there to make it look like we're doing something, but we're running the play.
And then this couldn't be a less consequential question, but I've had a lot of fans ask me, who decides the uniform combinations for you guys?
Well, I guess because I got the title, I own every decision that is made. But I do get a lot of advice from mix and match, and our players few of them have hit me up on what they prefer moving forward on some different combinations. So I'm not really answering your question, but at the bottom line, I got the title, so I guess I make the call.
We'll see as we practice this week.
But no, not even a starter going into the game.
Yeah, we'll just see as we go this week.
On the left, Isaiah. Marlon Klein left the game early. Do you have any update on his injury?
Yeah, working through something. We'll see what the doctors say as he practices this week. I think he'll get back into it tomorrow, Wednesday, but I think he'll be in a good place, but we'll see.
Come over on the right here. We'll start with Charlie. A couple of days removed, you got a little bit of chance maybe to watch the film. What stands out to you with lacking most on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, just execution on offense, turning the ball over, big thing. There's enough good, but not enough good. So we can't turn the football over. That's really the end of the discussion. If you don't turn the football over, you're going to win the game. You're going to put yourself in a position to be in a good place. But we did that, so we have to take care of the football at all costs.
On the right, Larry.
How would you describe the state of the program right now?
I mean, obviously not happy with the record, not happy with the losses, and really just want our kids to be in a good place mentally and spiritually. So that's where we are. You know, we're 4-3, but you know our job now is to get better to be 5-3 this week.
All right, Jeff.
Outside of the quarterback position, what's been the most disappointing facet of the team performance so far this year?
I mean, just you want to win every game, you know. So it's not that we're all in this together. We're not going to point fingers at any position, any people. So for us, just winning those games and taking care of the football as a whole collective unit.
On the left, Chris.
Is it fair to say you guys are protecting the ball better in practice? And if that's the case, how do you translate that?
Yeah, I feel like you're protecting it way better in practice, and it's just not translating to the game. So we have to figure out, as coaches, as a team, how to translate all that stuff to a game. There's things that you're doing in practice that have to replicate like they have before in the game. And for us as coaches, whether that's simplifying, doing things less, so we can be better at those things, especially on offense. And that's what we'll work toward doing that.
And Miles and Will, do you have any update on them?
I think we'll see again this week, and Miles looks like he's trending in a really good direction.
Back left, Terry.
Yes, question I have for you. How much is it when it comes to quarterback timing and then also the players running the routes correctly?
Yeah, that's everything. Timing plus spacing equals completion. So there has to be precise time. The alignment, the pre-snap alignment has to align with that, with the quarterback's footwork. So all those things tie into place, and those things have to continue to hone in and get better.
Stay on the left, Ryan.
What would you like to see from the punt operation and execution moving forward?
Yeah, we just got to be better in the punt game, just more distance. Tommy's, he's in the past, he's punted really, really good, and the averages aren't what they have been, so we've just got to be better there. The op's been, as far as the snap, the catch has been good, the protection has been good, but we've got to get the ball down farther so we can change the field position for our defense.
Has there been any discussion about you taking over offensive play calling duties again, or is that
No,
Curt able to?
No, that'll still be Curt.
On the right, Aaron.
What are you looking to see from the quarterbacks this week, and could you open it up to other quarterbacks?
Yeah, just taking care of the ball. Yeah, that's going to be the number one priority, the biggest thing. You want big plays, you want efficiency, but we have to take care of the football. That'll be the number one priority.
On the left here, Clayton.
The biggest issue is the turnovers, but how do you kind of balance not wanting to turn it over with not wanting to be completely risk averse and not, take any chances?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just an overemphasis of the ball security and, not just the ball security of holding the ball, but the placement of the ball. And that goes with the receivers, that goes with the timing of the passing game, that goes with the protection. So all those things put together and those little details will help us be better at that.
In the back right, Reiner.
Yeah, how do you explain program's regression in performance over the last 8 or 9 months?
Yeah, I just think it's about us taking care of the football. Again, I'll say it. I could say it tirelessly. You look at the really what we've done. It's because of the football, and look at last year. Just in terms of fumbles, not very many. Not in terms of picks. JJ had 3 in one game, and after that, he only had 1. So we have to do that. If we do that, we'll be in a better place.
What signs of growth have you seen since the beginning of the season? Like, what areas can you point to that actually have improved?
Yeah, I think defensively, the guys have really, offensively haven't put them in great positions all the time, and they've really bounced back and done some really good things for us overall. You go in the first half, and end of the half against Washington, block a field goal, and same end of this half, block a field goal. The defense, the guys tackled a lot better. I thought Jair Hill played a lot better this past game. He got challenged a lot and made some really good plays, so there's definitely progression. So on the defensive side, I can see that offensively we got to take the steps to go get there.
Back right, Andrew.
You have no control over it, but the fact that this game is at night, especially against Michigan State, do you have any thoughts or preference?
No, it's the next game, but it's a big game. It's the state championship, and our guys are very excited. Obviously down about what happened, but excited to go compete against this team that they take a lot of pride in. Paul Bunyan keeping that trophy here, so our guys are excited about the game, and so are the coaches.
In the middle there, Charles.
Yeah, the Michigan State quarterback has shown an ability to use his speed and get outside of the pocket. What's the best way to keep him contained?
Yeah, you got to do a great job with your rush lanes, and that's something we're going to stress and talk about. You got to do that with that guy because once he gets outside the pocket, he can be dynamic. He can do some things to hurt you. So you got to keep him in the pocket. And you got to be really disciplined with your lanes, whether it's a 4-man rush or a 5-man rush of where you're at in the pocket, keeping him compressed because if he gets out, he can make things happen with his feet and he can make things happen with his arms. So we got to do things there and then mix up different looks for him. So it's not easy so he can just look at his read and throw to his read. So we got to do a good job of keeping him in his pocket.
All right, Jeff.
Coach, Michigan State has its own ball security issues this year. Can you relate between the two offenses and the ball security issues that have really, as you elicited today, as Michigan State's experience with interceptions, are the offenses similar at all in that respect?
I mean, as far as not taking care of the football, you'd say so, but I just want us to be good. I want us to take care of the football ourselves and not going to worry about what they're doing. We're going to try to take the football away from them, for sure. But for us, we got to do everything we can to keep it.
Stand there right there, Bob.
Sherrone, when you have a team won the national championship last year and now you have 3 losses and that's a significant drop, do you worry, is it a challenge to keep them fully engaged, fully playing for things since maybe some of the prizes aren't available?
I mean, I think you look at the end of the game and what the score was, and you saw Mason Graham, you saw Kenneth Grant, you saw those guys playing their hearts out at the end of the game. So I think the culture oversees, the losses right now. Those guys see what they've done, how they've worked to get to this point, and there's a lot of pride in who they are as people, for them, for their village, for this team from Michigan. So guys aren't going to stop playing because we're not at the win total we had. We're going to continue to fight regardless of what it is.
On the left there, Ryan.
It looks like on defense, some guys got in there that haven't played much, especially 2 freshmen like Mason Curtis and Josiah Edmond. Is that more of them improving or other guys not living up to standards, or just what went into the rotation?
Yeah, I mean, more of them. Those guys just getting better. They got bright futures. We think Josiah Edmonds can be as good as anybody. He's got great skill set, great ability, great speed. And then Mason Curtis, you're talking about a 6'3" safety that can run and he'll hit you. So felt like those guys, we have these opportunity practice. We'll have another one today, and it gives a chance younger guys to really evolve and get better. And those are chances for those guys to make a move. We always say let's make a move Monday. If you want to go make it, do it. So those guys got a chance to do it, and those guys definitely take advantage of their opportunities.
On the right here, Austin.
Sherrone, with the turnovers, it seemed like the first time with Jack after the Washington game, you emphasized not wanting him to be too hard on himself.
Mm-hmm.
But then when it happened again, maybe a little firmer message, I guess. How do you balance emphasizing that without it becoming maybe like a mental thing for the quarterbacks?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a balance for it, and he's an older guy, obviously, that's done it. So you've got to tell him what you think, but also show him and tell him you need him, and show him you love him. But you got to correct it. It can't continue to be a thing. So that's something we'll just continue to harp on.
Angelique.
Sherrone, 2 questions. The Curt Campbell experiment on the sideline, will that continue on Saturday? And what did he get out of what did the team get out of that?
I think we'll see. I think I think it was good especially for the quarterbacks, seeing him face to face and being on the field. And I know from my own experience as a play caller, being on the field, it really helped me. But we'll just go through the week and figure out what we think is best for the crew.
And I know hindsight's 20/20, but now when you look back, why ultimately didn't you go into the portal and bring in a quarterback?
There's a lot of different factors and things that we can talk about, but ultimately, for us right now, we've got to focus on today and focus on who we have on the roster and making sure we can do everything we can to win.
Tony?
I was going to ask that as well, but I guess a rivalry game at this point and where the season's sort of going. I mean, do you see it could sort of be somewhere where the season sort of goes 2 ways? Is this another picking up point? I guess how big is it?
I think it's huge. It's a huge game. You're playing Michigan State, and it's a rivalry. It's the in-state rivalry, and everything's on the line. We got to keep Paul Bunyan here, and there's a lot of pride in that trophy. There's a lot of pride in this rivalry, and we're gonna do everything we can to win.
Got time for 4 more questions, which I already got them all in the queue here. So we're gonna start all the way in the back with John.
Sherrone, in your mind, how many guys are in line to possibly start at quarterback this week as you head into practice this weekend? Does that not impact installing a game?
We'll see as we go through the week.
Does that not affect installing a game plan?
Yeah, I think
Still trying to figure that out.
you have a game plan. You have different things that guys are better at, and then she'll feature for individual people. But we definitely have a process for what we'll go through and how we'll go through installing it all.
In the front here, Dennis.
Is Tuttle's arm strength where it was before he got hurt? Is that a work in progress with him coming back?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's probably 95%. So it's still there. He tried to drive that last one and he drove instead of throwing it over. So it's still there, and he made some really good throws. So I think his arm strength is where it needs to be.
Could you update the progress you've seen from Jaden Davis and maybe some things he has to work on to be a viable college quarterback?
Yeah, just continue to learn the system, learn the playbook, which I think he has done a good job of, and continue to improve his strength and his things in his toolbox. So he's definitely continued to progress.
On the left, Chris.
What did you see from right tackle to Andrew Gentry give you a boost there?
Yeah, I thought Gentry played well overall. A couple, technique falters, but definitely you can see the effort, you can see the strain, and I thought he played pretty well at that tackle spot. So I think he'll continue to stay there at that right tackle spot for sure.
And then center, the same thing with Griffin. Do you think he'll continue?
Yeah, I think he played well. We'll continue to continue to push the guys, but those guys did a good job.
Last question on the left, Isaiah.
I was going to ask the same question as Dennis about Jaden Davis, but where have you seen him make the most growth since you were as an early enrollee?
Yeah, just probably progression and knowledge of not only the system but just football in general. Yeah, when you're in high school, you do limited things. You're limited in what you do, and he's definitely taken steps to put himself in a good position.
All right, good morning, everybody. Appreciate you being here. Really excited for homecoming this week, getting all of our alum back, all of our fans back. We've had 3 sellouts this year, so Mike Erzbicki and Mills do such a great job of creating an elite atmosphere at Huntington Bank Stadium, and look forward to another one this week. Coming off our bye week, one of the main objectives was to find a way to get healthy, get some players back, and then go back over some self-scout of what we've done really well, what we need to continue to improve on. It gives you a time to reflect and really make some changes offensively, defensively, and special teams, and do everything you can to have a 5-game sprint here towards the end of the season. So we're looking forward to adapting those changes and what we needed to be able to do and what we felt like we could get better at, and then also get some recruiting in there as well with our staff this past weekend. So I thought we really accomplished everything that we wanted to accomplish in the bye week. And, now we're on to Maryland. Last night had a Tuesday practice in the stadium on Sunday night, which I thought was really good for our players. So it was good to see them, good to be back. In the season, when you're away from them for like a day and a half or 2 days, that feels like a year, right? And so everybody was like, oh, it's good to see you last night. Oh, so good to see you. Like, we saw each other 2 days ago, but it feels like forever. So really good to get back around them again last night. Had great meetings and a really good practice, and got a really good opponent coming in here at Huntington Bank Stadium on homecoming with Maryland coming to town, so who just beat USC. So I'll leave it open for questions.
BG, when you're looking at the self-scout, what stood out about the offense, and in particular the offensive line?
Yeah, I think that, when we fire off the ball and we know what to do and we know where we're going, we're pretty good. We're playing against some really good defensive lines, though. Nobody's just going to allow you to run the football. I think our pass pro, we could make some tweaks here or there, but for the most part, I think our pass pro is doing a really good job against who we're facing and what we're facing. It's not just about who you're facing, about what are people doing against you in the X and O department that you could expect in the next 5, or find some things that, hey, this could be a weakness of us, people could continue to exploit. But like I said, I think our offensive line is playing really, really hard. I'm really proud of those guys. They're fighting, scrapping, clawing. But we played some really good football teams. And that's what the new Big Ten is. Every week, they just keep coming at you. This week against Maryland, they're twitchy, they're stout, they're good, they're long, they're athletic. So it just keeps coming at you. That's the good and bad of our league, is that just one after another, they keep coming at you. But I'm really proud of the progress they are making. When I go back as a head football coach, are we getting better? In every area, are we getting better at every position? And when you go back as a head coach and you take a lot of pride in the development of your football team, and that's how we find a way to win here at Minnesota. And we're getting better. At every position, we're getting better. And again, I get to be the judge of that and how we're doing that. That doesn't mean that we don't have areas to continue to improve on. But this team is really together, really connected, just like our O-line. They want to get better. They want to be able to find out what they're not good at and go improve those things. And that's half the battle in coaching, is having guys willing to go out there and want to get better and be transparent and honest of what we have to get better at. But I'm proud of those guys.
How would you evaluate special teams through the first 7 games?
Yeah, we've had some really good times. We've had some hard times, but who hasn't around the country? I think everybody's chasing perfection. You're writing for perfection. We're coaching towards perfection. Our players are working towards perfecting all those things. You'll never get there. I think every head coach, I watch all press conferences. I watch 10 press conferences a week. And they ask the same questions to that head coach as you're all asking of us, because you can only ask so many questions in football. And it's all pretty similar. And something's got to give, and something always has to improve. But we've been consistent in a lot of times, in a lot of areas. We've been inconsistent in some other areas. But there's always room for improvement. I think we've had some things that we've opened our eyes that we can do better, but also things that we haven't had in a while. That I think has really helped us make special teams even part of more of a game changer in the game. So, we just got to continue to be more consistent. I know that sounds cliche, but we need to be really consistent. We go back and analyze 3 things always, right? The ball, tackling, and explosive plays. And that comes into every single phase. That's what's great about having a core philosophy and belief of how you win football games. You can always go back to it. Right, so if I'm talking about 78%, which is a 9-3 season, right, or winning, 78% of that time within that game about the ball, tackling, explosive plays, then we need to focus on that. You can focus on that in special teams. You can focus on that in offense. You can focus on that on defense, and in that area, there's always room for improvement.
PJ, reviewing their defensive footage, they have a really different fronts, 6-7 man fronts, 3-man fronts. They run a lot of delayed blitzes. So what impressed you about their front seven?
Yeah, I mean, they can do a lot of things from odd to even. They can get to a lot of, we got a chance to be able to get into them a little bit last week, then confirm what we saw and continue to game plan based on their game against USC. But they're big and stout up front. They're twitchy. They got a lot of length, size, strength. They're really good at center of gravity, shedding blocks, making plays with defensive linemen. Linebackers are really active, come downhill really well. They're stout. They tackle really well. And, getting to multiple fronts and multiple pressures where they can create things you haven't seen has really been the flavor we've seen the last 3-4 weeks, starting with Michigan and going all the way down. And that's a challenge because you got to be really good in-game adjustments because you're going to see things that you haven't prepared for. And they can get to a lot of things you haven't prepared for because of the variety of fronts that they have.
Self-scouted defensively.
Well, I think, it's going to sound boring, Andy. I mean, it really will. It's going to come down to, we've got to be able to get more takeaways. And I know that we're doing really well in that department right now. But when you look at the games we don't win, we don't get enough takeaways. And we've got to play complementary football. Complementary football is not just playing good offense, good defense, and good special teams. If something's not giving on one side or not doing well, it's got to be made up on the other side of the ball. And then it's got to be bridged with special teams and vice versa, right? You want to play really well in all three phases, but every single press conference, there's something that a head coach is talking about that last week they didn't do very well. I haven't seen one press conference where like, we have nothing to work on. We're doing pretty well. We won in all three phases. I'm not sure what we're going to do on Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll figure it out, though. We're going to read books. And nobody talks about that, right? So defensively, we've got to – it's kind of like when you look at your team, it's the beginning of the year, and you play your first game. That tells you everything you need to know. And then you've got to make all that up and get better at that throughout the year. We've got to be better at our tackling, right? Not only in space, but in holes. We've got to be better at tackling at the point of attack, using our tackling circuit, right, with the appropriate tackle. We've got to be able to continue to get more takeaways and be more advantageous, not just with interceptions, but getting the ball out in the run game. And then we've got to be able to eliminate explosive plays, whether in the run game or the pass game. And when we do those three things, Andy, we're a really good football team. It doesn't mean people aren't really good offenses. We did all those three things against USC, and they still scored 17 points. Now, 17 points in Big Ten football, that could be considered a lot or not enough. Just depends on who's looking at it. But that is what was needed to hold that high-powered offense for us to be able to win the football game and score one more point than they did. But I think when you go back through it, Andy, it sounds cliche, but it goes back to the three things. We're always going to find out those three things. How can we then creatively get better at the ball, get better at our tackling, and eliminating explosive plays? Eliminating explosive plays isn't just saying you want to eliminate explosive plays. How are we setting the edge? Are we setting the edge of the defense properly? Are we setting the edge violently enough? Right? Are we doing a really good job on our coverage and our attention to details within the fundamentals and in our coverage techniques? So again, it sounds broad, Andy, but within those things, there are so many details that we got to get better at. The discipline, the details, and the how. There's always those built within those three.
BG, in your career, can you remember a freshman who's impacting the game as much in different ways as Coy is for you?
It's hard to compare. I think he's making a huge impact. I think I mentioned before, if you had a true freshman, and Corey Davis at Western Michigan was pretty good, ended up being the 5th overall pick. He played as a true freshman, but when you're talking about the impact that he's making on offense or on defense, special teams, that's hard to do as a true freshman. And he came in June. I think that's a great lesson for everybody that's said, I have to start early or I'm coming early to be able to play. That's true. I would have loved to see where he is if he came in January because that puts you 6 months ahead. But just remember, he came in June. He hasn't even been through the strength program, an off-season program yet. But that's a credit to him. That's a credit to Danny Collins, his position coach, and his preparation of making sure when he got here, he was ready to go. And I think everybody wants to play. Everybody wants to be able to impact as a freshman. That's really, really difficult to do. But you better be doing a lot of things leading up to you coming here to give yourself even a chance. And then when you get here, you got to make up a lot of ground. And some people say they want that, and it tests you when you get here. Coy's one that really answered the bell.
What stands out?
I mean, it's amazing. I just went up there, and he's over there eating string cheese. and just eating string cheese, just up there, just pulling the string apart like one by one, just eating it like I like string cheese, but it's just like I said, when you get a chance to see them all the time, like they're kids, he's pulling apart string cheese, like my kids do, we put them at this level of like these professionals and the salary cap next year and the NIL and they're still kids, so he's refreshing, that's for sure.
PG, what stands out about Maryland's passing game, and is their receiver maybe the best that you faced? Obviously, a couple at USC that were pretty good as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to sit there and say who is the best, but he's one of the best that we faced, yes, with all due respect of all the wideouts we played prior leading up to him. But they don't not only have him, they got two others that are really, really good. And when you look at the whole, this is very similar to like a USC where there's four guys on the outside that any one of them can beat you. One gets targeted a little bit more than the other. Number 10 gets targeted more than probably all of them, but they all can beat you, and they all have very similar skill sets where, they can contort their bodies, make back shoulder catches, win the one-on-one matchups, find spots and zones, play big, play small. They can do it all. And their catch radius is ridiculous. And the quarterback extends plays where that's one of the most dangerous parts is everything breaks down. He can extend the play, really good thrower on the run. He's a really good athlete that finds a way to get the ball to the open receivers. And then if they're not open, he allows them to go make a play on the ball and give them a 50-50 ball, which, they're making catches more than they're not on those 50-50 balls.
You've always stressed connectivity with your program, so with a week like homecoming, how does that, more enhanced both within the team and with bringing former players back to talk to the guys?
Yeah, I think that, we're having more former players back than ever. And I think that's a compliment to the program and the culture and our alumni connecting each other. This is not just about the 8 years we've been here. This is about the entirety of being a Gopher. And again, I think one of the number one jobs as a head football coach is to get your players to absolutely love their alma mater and have the greatest experience they possibly can. That when you're gone, they come back and feel really welcome no matter what, no matter who the head coach is, no matter what culture's here, no matter who's, what when row the boat's done, what's the next thing with Sky Uma that attaches them to everything. Remember I said Sky Uma is the tradition. Row the boat is now, and the culture mixed with that tradition. And that's how we do it now. There's going to be another one that comes in eventually down the road. So I think it's really big that nobody's bigger than the program, and everybody understands that, past, present, and future. And I can't thank our alumni enough, not only just in the NFL, but everybody that's out there that supports our program and supports our student athletes. They do a great job. So our job is to go out and put the best product on the field. That's a fact. That's our job. And our alumni come back and have a really, really good time and a really good experience enjoying the game and all the homecoming festivities outside of football.
PJ, in this position?
No, obviously disappointing day on Saturday. I had a chance to go back and watch the tape and look at all that happened. And a lot of credit to Indiana for playing really, really a clean football game. And B, just not our best football in any area. So disappointing. It's just kind of an opportunity for us to kind of get back today and get to work and try to improve that. We have obviously a great test ahead of us, but we're excited to move forward. So with that, I'll take all your guys' questions.
You watched the defensive film. What were your main takeaways about why you struggled on defense to that level?
Yeah, we struggled at the corner position. They isolated some one-on-one throws and won all of them. Those are 50-50 balls. So you should come down. You should win 50% of the time, and they won most of them. So then we were kind of maybe a little bit more off, and they took a lot of free access. But really, the game came down to me to the run game. We were not able to stop the run, and really, in some cases, in some, like as I said the other day, like some inexplicable, like we're blitzing into the run, and there's an unblocked defender, and we just didn't tackle, didn't play well. In the second half, go back for that game now. It's 14-7 with 4 minutes left in the first half. And we call that the middle eight. The first four. We've been historically very good in that area, And, we weren't. We weren't good. And, you as a head coach, I think you always have to start with, like, what do I regret? What do I not regret? Coming out in the second half, it's 28-7. We drive the ball down there. It's 4th and 8, 4th and 9. Probably should have kicked the field goal there. The analytics say no. The analytics say go for it. And there's a big part of me that, like, wants to show the guys that you're always playing to win. And it felt like a lot of times in that game we were playing not to lose. And I think defensively, the minute you lose that edge of I'm playing to win, where you're trying not to lose, a really good defense becomes very average very quickly. And so, but I put them in harm's way in the second half by, going for 4th down, trying to get back in the game, At the same time, I probably shouldn't have done it. I don't know that I regret it, if that makes sense. Like, I kept saying to Giff on the sidelines, hey, I can't wave the white flag. I can't not try to get back in this game. But to answer your question, so I think that's what made the score so bad. But we from the very beginning, we were not tackling at the level we're capable of. We were not that first 4th and 3rd and 1. If an unblocked defender there, it doesn't make the play. So we just was bad all around.
You mentioned after the game, like the bubble screens were going for none, and they were getting them for 20. How would you size up just the perimeter blocking and where that's at right now?
Our perimeter blocking has been a deficiency for us the entire year and continues to be. Like even on the first drive, the second drive of the game, you think about the game, right? We start with the ball on the 1 yard line. We get a couple first downs, we punt the ball. Then the next drive, we drive the ball all the way down to the 15 yard line. We fumble. But they blitz off the edge. We have a bubble screen out there. Should get thrown out there. Doesn't get thrown out there. Okay, whatever. Well, on the first drive of the second half, we kick it out there, and Jacory just gets tackled because we don't block the safety. There's an execution component of all this that I hate when coaches say, well, we just didn't execute, right? Like, to me, that's like a cop-out. But what I don't like is missed assignments. What I don't like is, not knowing what to do. And so in many areas, things happened fast in that game. They pressured us. We kicked the ball out, and either we run into the defender or we don't make the block. So that whole component of our game was lacking, and it's something that they did. They did, on the goal line, they did it at a high level. They did it a couple times. They took advantage of their RPOs. So it's an area that we have to be better at.
What's your challenge to your assistant coaches as they take the players through both the fundamental drills and just the preparation this week for how they can get the players better in a short amount of time?
Yeah, Keith told me, I do a good job in season of just staying very locked in and not reading stuff and listening to stuff. But, Keith kind of said, like, hey, he said to me, hey, your statement of I didn't see this coming gained traction. To which I would say, and it's going to get your point, if I saw this coming, then you guys should all be very nervous. Like, I thought we were going to play well, and I thought we had a great bye week. And we legitimately, Sam, I'm telling you, we legitimately, worked on these things over and over. Now, sometimes, no one's going to want to hear this. Sometimes maybe it'll show up this week, maybe it'll show up the next week. But these are not things we haven't done all year, all spring. We got to that moment, and we just didn't do the things I know we're capable of doing. And so I hate when coaches walk in after games and say, hey, that's on me. But I really felt that way because, I know what we're capable of doing, and we didn't do it. We just weren't ready for that moment. We weren't ready for that game. We weren't ready for, and it felt like that all the way up. Even in pregame, it felt awesome. So to your point, I think there's a challenge sent to the coaches. There's also a challenge sent to the players. These are grown men. You're supposed to block that guy. Block him. Block him. There's a couple of plays. Emmett spins out of one, and if the guy would have blocked the safety on the backside, he'd gone for a touchdown. I just show the guys as a team how much we all affect each other. A missed block on a bubble screen leads to a 4th and 8 pick, which leads to the ball going all the way down to the 20, which leads to a touchdown. Everyone's got to do their job and do it at a high level. So, to me, this happened to us. We allowed it to happen. It stunk. It hurt. We'll find out a lot about ourselves moving forward. We'll find out about the coaches. We'll find out about the players. We'll find out about me. The last thing we're going to do is sit around and be victims. So yeah. There's areas that we struggled in that game, but at the same time, we haven't struggled tackling like we did in that game. We haven't struggled getting off blocks. We haven't struggled guys. We haven't done that, and so we did it in that game. So I think today we took a deep step back, and then we'll attack the week.
You had 5 turnovers in the last 6 quarters. I think before that you only had 3 in 22 quarters. Particularly in the passing game, what are you seeing? Why is Dylan forcing throws or throws not there? Or teams playing different looks on Dylan? I mean, why are the interceptions there now that maybe weren't there at the beginning of the year?
I think a smarter coach probably would have just settled the game. Like when you're down 35-7, would have settled the game down. I just, in my mind, the long game is that Dylan's going to have to learn how to play in those moments, right? Like intense pressure, trying to get the team back in the game. So we probably could have minimized that. Like, you know, you go through the interceptions, you know, the first one's 4th and 8. Like, I think if Thomas came up here, he would say, man, I have the defender outside me. I'm supposed to hook in on double. You know, it's an option route. He caught that on the first down. If I would have turned in and read the coverage right, Dylan would have thrown me the ball. It'd have been a first down. The thing about Dylan is Dylan's not going to walk in the postgame press conference and say, hey, those ones aren't on me. You know, he's just going to walk in and say, I have to play better. And he does. We all have to play better. But, you know, so we're crucial 4th and 8. Like if the game's a little different, maybe we kick that field goal. Dylan, he doesn't have that one there. You know, then the one with the scramble, you know, he's scrambling to his left. Jacory sees him scramble, so he throws it to Jacory. Jacory takes off because that's how we teach scramble. Just kind of a tough play. So the third one's a batted ball. So, yeah, we don't want any of those, and those aren't excuses to them, but everything's not just always kind of as it seems. I thought Dylan did a lot of really, really good things in the game. Unfortunately, the game plan we had going in when it hit 28-7 kind of starts to alter a little bit, right? Like, all right, well, we're going to have to throw the ball a little bit more than we maybe wanted to. Indiana's an elite pass rush team. And so our hope was to be able to mix the run and the pass when it got away from us. But I don't think people are doing anything differently. I think, you know, each week we're facing better teams, and we have to continue to improve and play better. And but that all goes together, right? We're talking about the perimeter blocking. Like, you have to be able to kick a bubble out and have a guy go for 30. You know, Steve, you asked me after the game, like, we need a run to pop for 80. Every run can't get tackled by the ankles, and so, you know, instead of, you know, my main thing in life as a coach is not to panic, not to overreact, not to change everything. Just keep getting better at it until you're the best at it that they are. And so, but I wanted Dylan to stay in there in that game, in that situation. I wanted him to have to battle through all that. You know, he suffered. You know, he went through 3 interceptions. He suffered through that, and hopefully we get a little bit better as we move forward. But I think he's playing well. I really do. It might not seem that way to everybody, but I think when I watch the tape, I like most of everything that he's doing, and we'll just keep building off it because the teams get better and better.
Along those lines, no panic, no overreact. Do you have to be wary of anything with the players because of the nature of that loss? Is it any different when it's 56-7? What you look out for in the locker room on the practice field?
I mean, I think you're doing that every week, right? You know, I think if you have the right team, the right group of men in the room, and you know, if anything, 56-7 should snap you back to reality, right? Like, it's again, you know, it's like, you know, we had some success defensively the last game, and all of a sudden, you know, I'm more worried about success leading to complacency than I do about coming back from something hard. I mean, you go back and watch the tape now. If you watch the coach's tape, 2 or 3 times we should have sacked guys. So the guys that were like all over the news interviews and all over Twitter talking about how many sacks they have, or they didn't show up in that game, right? So to me, I'm worried about complacency, and I really trust our players. I think our players just have to settle down and go back to the drawing board. You have a bunch of veteran players who, you know, we've had a couple opportunities to get to these big moments, and we've gotten there. It's just kind of fallen a little bit flat, right? So last year, Michigan, right? And then we rebound from that, right? And then we get ourselves to 5-3, and then we just can't quite get over the hump. And then here we are. Colorado, to me, was a breakthrough, right? Like, hey, a big moment, and we went and played it. And then, you know, I mean, Illinois has proven to be a pretty good team, right? They just beat Michigan on the road, but that was a good game back and forth. But we got to overtime, and it just kind of looked like that game, right? And now here we are on the road against Indiana, a team I felt we were prepared for, and it fell flat. So part of my job is getting us to, you know, not fall flat, right? I'm not saying we were flat. I'm saying the effort falling flat. But I don't worry about our guys not competing. I really honestly don't. That's the least of my worries. I don't.
How do you work?
All right, guys, seriously, in the interest of time, I'll get right to your questions. Really, really talented opponent in Southern Cal. We got a huge challenge in front of us, one that we're excited about taking on. So,
injuries obviously have been a big part of the season, but are they just football, or is there one thing you could point to, whether that's strength and conditioning, medical staff, any processes you guys have done in the preseason that you think are, you know, leading to this?
No, it's a very physical game, football. People wear these hard helmets, and they wear these hard plastic pads, and they're really strong. The strength and conditioning gets them really big and strong and fast, and then they run full speed into each other. And sometimes that hurts them. Sometimes they're so strong that when they go to stop, their ligaments and stuff aren't as strong as their muscles, right? And they tear a ligament. But yeah, no, there's no blame. There's no conspiracy theory that somebody put something in their Wheaties. It's just, that's the way it is. Some years you're fortunate with injuries, some years you're not. But the reality is, and this is the reality that our team has to understand and that the coaching staff has to understand, and I certainly understand, is nobody cares. Nobody cares if you have 20 injuries or 5. It doesn't matter. So talking about them, I love that we have the availability report because now I don't have to talk about them. I just say it's in the availability report. So I like that. Other than that, I have to deal with it, and I meet with my trainers and my medical and strength and high performance every single day. It's all we talk about as the players. We'll see. We'll see who the 74 are that get on the plane. That's a challenge too, right? If you have a guy that you don't know, we leave Wednesday. You don't know if he's going to be ready to play on Friday or not. You got to make a decision. Do you take him or do you take somebody else? You may say, well, 74, coach. Well, if you start looking at all the special teams and all the guys that can maybe play 15 plays, it adds up quickly. So my issue's not yours.
Just with the short week, obviously that throws a little wrench in things from a preparation standpoint, but going cross country, playing a really late kickoff game, have you changed anything else from a preparation standpoint?
We have, without getting into all our schedule and all that stuff. We generally never go out a day early. Just we stay on Rutgers time. But when you have a 8 o'clock start Pacific, I don't think it's prudent to stay on Rutgers time. Now, we've done it in the NFL, we've done it in college, we've done it everywhere. It's really served us well. The times that we went out early on other teams that I coached on, I don't think it served us well. But we have no choice in this matter. I guess you have a choice, but at 2:30 in the morning, hopefully the game is on the line. And I don't like my decision making at 2:30, and I don't really like our players' decision making at 2:30 either. So we'll go out early, and we'll have some stuff out there on Thursday. We'll get out there Wednesday night, do some stuff there Thursday, and then go play the game Friday and come home right after the game.
Following the game, you ended the press conference talking about your optimism of the direction of the program and where things were going. And sometimes fans don't always want to hear that right in the moment. But what leads to your level of optimism, and what are you seeing? And is it optimism for this season or moving forward?
No, it's optimism for that night, right? It didn't go the way we wanted on the field, but I know how the coaches are approaching it. I know how our players are approaching it. It didn't happen, and I totally understand. Again, it's a long-suffering fan base. I get that. So every time they get a little, and then it doesn't exactly happen, it'll happen. That was my point, is just hang in there. It's going to happen. It didn't happen overnight the first time. It's not happening overnight this time. It will happen. I go out to practice every day. I see them train year-round. I see our coaches, the way they work. It'll happen. Will it be a linear ascent? No, it won't. But that's the confidence. It's not an arrogance. It's not a defiance. It literally is, I see it. So it's a great question because hopefully that will get to some people that are a little concerned. Right? I said the sky is falling. I don't mean to be sarcastic. That's not my attempt. My attempt is to literally explain why. There's some things going on right now that are not under our control, and you have to live with what you live with. I made it very clear that it's my decision. I made the decision to play some people that maybe weren't 100%, thinking that they were better than someone else that was at 80%. I have to reconsider that. I may play the exact same people if they're able. I don't know that. That's what this week's practice is about. But as you mentioned, right? I mean, it's a shorter week. You're not going to have the exposures, so we'll figure it out. By Wednesday, when we get on that plane, there's only 74 guys that can get on, and I got to make sure we have the right 74. So then we can make the right choices who the right 11 are, and throw on top of that a really, really talented team that's got their back against the wall as well, right? So like we both probably have very similar feelings about what we have to do Friday night. Should make for a great game. Really respect everything they do out there. They're really a complete program. Coach does a great job.
Kind of off of that, what do you see from that USC offense on film?
Ooh, talented as all get out. They have speed and athleticism at the receiver. They have a young or inexperienced but very, very talented quarterback. He's rolling up the cash register as far as numbers go. The running back situation, really strong. They have their lead guy like we do, and then they have a guy that spells them. And then the offensive line is gigantic. So, yeah, it's typical SC, what you would expect from an SC football team. And then you throw on top of it, they're so well coached. You know, you can see all the years of Coach Riley's mindset come into his play. I remember going against him back when I was at Ohio State in 2016. And we were playing Oklahoma, and he was the OC. And you see a lot of the same stuff, but you see how he's evolved over the years to this year, you know, to this time. I just think they're really well coached. Schematically, they present as many issues as anybody we play all year.
Frustrating performance on Saturday. Did not play our brand of football. You know, there's a lot to work on, and at the end of the day, you know, Sunday provided an opportunity for us to identify the areas that we need to get fixed. Did not play well on special teams. You know, anytime you're giving up a blocked punt, you know, that is not a recipe for success. You know, did not find ways to flip the field. Thought we did some good things on punt return, but in the other phases had areas of you know, things that had not shown up to this point. We got to rebound in that area of all three phases. You know, found some ways to create takeaways. We're not able to convert those into points. You know, won the turnover battle, but did not win the points off of turnovers battle. That, you know, is a critical recipe to our success as a football team. And at the end of the day, it's an opportunity for us to, you know, look at square in the eye and get back to work and know that we need to improve as we approach going into a hostile environment against a very good Iowa team. So had a chance to review the film this morning. Excited to get back this afternoon and dive into Iowa.
First question, Matt.
Coach, can you walk us through the decision in the game at left guard? You ended up subbing a true freshman, Zomo Radakai, over Nick Herzog. What was the process there?
Yeah, you know, as we went throughout the week, last week, Nick was able to practice last week, but as the week progressed, you know, some of the issues that he's been dealing with just continued to be nagging and lingering, and just really felt like, you know, between Mo and Cooper there at left guard, that was going to be in the best interest of the group up front and Nick, you know. So, you know, we'll see how it plays out here, you know, the remainder of the season with Nick. But, you know, first off and foremost, got to look out for his health and his not only short-term health but long-term health, and that's something that we'll be evaluating here in the next couple of days and in coming weeks.
And then the decision to put his Mo in the game, was that a depth chart decision, or was there an injury to Cooper?
No injury to Cooper. You know, just kind of letting those guys compete. Mo's been showing some really good things in practice, you know, especially in run game, and just kind of letting those guys, you know, see how the flow of the game was going, how those guys were playing, and go with the hot hand.
Coach, as you have been studying Iowa, I'm sure you probably have already started that process. We know that Iowa over the years, particularly in the last couple of years, has been a very strong defense. What do you attribute through your analysts what's happening offensively? They seem like they've improved there.
Yeah, you know, a lot of the same things in terms of philosophically establishing the run, play action. You know, run scheme is very similar to what we've seen in previous years. But, you know, I think they're doing a good job. You know, very talented back. You know, it starts with the O-line. Quarterback play has been impressive. I mean, you look at the Washington game, very good Washington defense, and their ability to put up 40 points. You know, doing some good things formationally, some good things with motions. You can just tell that the identity and philosophy is still staying consistent with what we've known to be, you know, Iowa football, Iowa offense at its best, but, you know, some new wrinkles that I think are paying dividends and, you know, have shown the ability to be very explosive and balanced, utilizing the passing game as well.
So, Coach, as a follow-up, has there been any changes in their offensive coaching staff, maybe their philosophy, or are they still Iowa as we know it?
It's still Iowa as we know it, but I think Coach Lester has come in and done a really good job of putting his his fingerprints are certainly on it, and has done a really nice job of integrating into still being true to who they want to be as an offense, but finding ways to be creative and do some new things and utilize their personnel. I don't know Coach Lester, but have known of him for a long time. I think he does an exceptional job, and has really done a good job with that offense in his first year.
Coach, do you have an update on either AJ or Xander?
Really encouraging news coming out of Saturday, just in terms of long-term health of both. Like I think that was our concern with both those guys. First off and foremost is just, scary situations with both of potential their long-term health. In terms of their return to play, we'll know more as we get into this afternoon and into tomorrow. But both came out in terms of it being situations where there's a pathway for those guys to return, which not only for this season but for both of their futures beyond college football was really good news after a long day.
Coach, you talked about the special teams battle, and typically that's been a battle you guys have been able to win, especially in the return game, and you're going up against an Iowa team that struggled in returns. How important is it for you guys to get that hidden yardage, especially going on the road?
It's always critical, and Iowa will absolutely challenge us in that space. It's been part of their formula for such a long time. They do a tremendous job of developing depth on their entire roster. Their demeanor or play and effort in all three phases, especially on special teams, is exceptional. I challenged our group this morning. These are things that we need to get fixed, and the challenge that we're staring down this week with an Iowa team that plays at extremely high level on special teams, with their effort, technique, and the amount of time that they invest as a program. It will not be an easy task to bounce back, but we're going to have to.
Coach, Damon Walters led the team this weekend with 11 tackles, nearly had his second pick in 2 weeks. How have you seen him really step into what's an unexpected role for himself during his redshirt freshman year?
Yeah, I think anyone that was tracking on Damon throughout spring ball and fall camp would tell you that this is not a surprise, and would also follow that up by saying it's a credit to the young man's preparing like a starter regardless of the amount of snaps that he's been taking on defense. Was dinged up after the Duke game for a little bit and just continued to stay consistent once he was back and available, was back to form. I think it's a credit to his preparation, his confidence, and the way that he's performed these last 2 weeks is something that reflects what we've seen out of him in practice, which is really exciting.
Coach, Jack with another game under 10 completions. I know progress and success is not always linear, but how do you get him to play more consistent football?
Yeah, it's a lot of things. An established run game, always helps staying ahead of the chains, not creating 1st and 15 or 2nd and 15 situations with procedural penalties. I thought he did some great things with his feet of creating some first downs. But part of it's trust in the pocket when the pocket's there for him. Part of it there in the second half is, creating more scenarios when we're not operating out of, the shadows of our own goalposts. Jack also knows that, the performance that he put on tape on Saturday wasn't his best. He'll be the first one to tell you that he's hungry to get back to practice and improve. But, it comes down to a lot of things. But to your point, it's not always linear. Have full faith in Jack and everyone around him to bounce back after a tough performance and play winning football against Iowa.
Up on that, how